You like surprises, Red?
I love surprises.
Well,
What
I
girl
got a, s-
doesn't?
I've got a surprise for us on this show, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, you're a tease.
Is there any other way? I mean, that we got to build up the anticipation.
Hmm.
But it's been a while since we've been.
Hmm.
Life happens when you're trying to do a show. But welcome back. Welcome everybody back to the Twisted Pair. I am Graybeard.
And I am Ash Red, and I am super excited about our guest today. We have Michael Rosales with RoMa Craft, and we're so thankful that you could join us. So thank you for coming on to the Twisted Pair tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing
Doing good.
wonderful. Yes.
We have talked about bringing you guys on the show for quite some time. In fact, you and I talked about bringing you or Skip onto the show back in Michael's tobacco shop in Keller back at the Halloween cut and light that you guys were there on. And that's when we first met and had a really good conversation, tried a bunch of different cigars, and I even brought home some of your artwork.
Yeah.
But so welcome. Glad to have you on here.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want
Oh
to make
yeah,
sure that audio is good. I know we did a
Hmm.
mic check. So, yeah,
audio.
good. So that's so we've done the Michael's Halloween event. Um, gosh, 2014, 2015 was the first year. So it's I think we started over off Glade. Did it there for about 4 or 5 years, and then
Hmm.
last 3 years, I think we do it now. We've done it at the North
Hmm.
location,
Mm,
and so it just continued to get bigger and better. It's always amazing to see people. Um, this last year was a little different because at the same time you also had like the World Series going on, so you had
yes.
a huge mix of people who dressed up, but then also like game day apparel as they rooted on the home team and their on their way to win the World Series. So that was it was
Hmm.
interesting. So
A,
those
a, a
didn't
lot.
count as costumes.
A lot.
A lot of us were moving back and forth from up front and talking to
Hmm.
everybody at Roma, and then back into the lounge, to grab another old
Yeah,
fashioned from Kelly
yeah.
and watch the game and back and forth. Yes, yeah, it was a
It was
good time.
it was serious
Yeah.
business. It was
Yeah.
luckily you buy your cigars and they just went back and then they it was game time. So it was
Yeah.
but
It was an
I'm glad
exciting
that
time. First World Series for us.
I see that. It's what's funny is once the game was over, people stopped wearing all their apparel. So I'm
I
just
don't.
saying. So you don't wear it or you still
No,
wear it?
I still wear it. I still,
Okay.
yeah, I have about like 50 Ranger shirts.
I, I
So
Okay.
would I would not be surprised if she doesn't have somewhere some Rangers PJs that she goes to sleep in.
I
All
do.
right.
I
See,
do.
Because
I
before that,
mean,
I didn't realize it was a thing, and then after they won, it's clearly a thing. So I'm just yeah. So no.
We're far and
Um.
few between.
Yeah. No. That's it's always good. I mean, everyone's happy when the home team is winning. That's what they say.
Hmm.
absolutely. Well, let's kick this off by first going around and what we're pairing. I mean, because we are the Twisted Pair. So, uh, Michael, what are you pairing tonight?
Well, I'm I'm gonna switch it up. I had something prepared, but then this bottle just caught my eye, so I'm gonna call an audible. This is the Senator. It's was bottled. It's a straight rye whiskey.
Mm,
Ooh,
Um,
rye.
hmm.
Love rye.
yeah, so it's a barrel proof coming in at 117.90. It's
Oh, my
58.
man, my brother.
Yeah. So this is
Yes.
I don't know. Let me see if I get
There
the
we
Yeah.
line
go.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. And I am going to pair this with what I think is it's the Whiskey Rebellion Jefferson. It's a Whiskey Rebellion is under the Intemperance brand. Um,
Hmm.
it's a Habano wrapper, Indonesian binder, Nicaraguan, Dominican blend. Um, can we say pricing? Can't say pricing.
Nope.
Okay,
Can't say
so it's
prices.
about
I
this
like
to
that.
that. So
I like that.
yeah.
Perfect.
But
Perfect.
yeah,
Perfect.
so there's always a loophole. There's always a
There is.
loophole,
You
right?
Love
know,
So
it.
we weren't saying anything prices. The ASL. You know, sign language. We've
hmm
got to be able to communicate with all of our audience. So
yeah. So I think definitely something that the Habano's got a nice spice to it. I think this would be really good with the proof that it has. So this is a 6-year rye. Um, that I think it's I don't even know where this comes out of, but it's really great. So
That is, I think that's a Kentucky, and I want to say OKI does it, but I'm not positive. But I've had that pour before, and it's definitely a good one.
yeah, that's
Well, I think
yep,
anything rye is great. So,
yeah. A little sweetness, a little sweet, a little
mm-hmm.
spicy. So
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
So red,
okay. So I am smoking. Oops. If I, it might help if I uncover the band here. I have one that was cut. Man, I'm acting like this is my first time. So I have the Baca, and this is one of my favorites. It's a really good go-to. Like I went when they first came out, I was going through it like it was candy. Like it was like seriously, I was trying to find them and because I was smoking through them too fast, like the shops were going out um, and I was sad because I couldn't find them for a little while. And I am pairing mine with water. So, but I have my "Don't Tread on Me" cup.
don't
So,
tread on me.
yeah.
is it
So,
a flat water? Is it regular water? Is it a
it is. It yeah. I
is
didn't
there
do
anything,
sparkling. It's a
nothing in it?
regular
Okay,
Ozarka water, just plain Jane.
okay, nothing wrong with
I know.
that.
I'm just real exciting tonight.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's the best way
Hmm.
to experience a cigar.
It really is because
When
you
you
get
want
the
to
true.
when you want to experience a cigar in its truest form,
Hmm.
that is the best way. So Chris comes in and says that his is the Black Irish too.
Oh,
That's I mean, and the
yeah,
Black Irish is so good.
yeah. It is phenomenal. That
I
Candela.
am I am smoking the Cro-Magnon, and I don't know which Vitola this is, but this is it's a I want to say
Box
that
press,
yeah, it's box
Box
press.
press.
Mastodon, Cro-Magnon Mastodon,
Okay,
Hmm.
so
four and a
this
half
is
by 4.5 by 60. Yeah,
yeah, and I am coming in with Rebel Distillers Collection.
very nice.
And if you want to know how good this is, well, go out to the website this next week because I will be posting a review on this particular bottle this weekend.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, it came in at a pretty good score. But I can't give it away because
See,
then I'm
just
giving
you're
away all my
just you're
surprises.
just you're just teasing people tonight. See, that's not very nice.
I know. I mean, I don't know what it is with me just teasing people tonight. It's just what is this with me? Just full of surprises that I'm not talking about just yet.
So let's get on to asking Michael about their wonderful cigars. So first of all, if you wouldn't mind, tell us how Roma Craft came about and how you and Skip came together.
We were sitting out on the floor, and there was this bottle, and they spun it, and no, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, you keep on
That
going
would
with
have
that
been that
story.
would have
That
been like
is
great. That would have been
Yeah.
great.
So, listen, I think, so I would tell you, after a while, and doing many, many, many events, um, it's one of those things like the origin story. As much as people like to hear about it,
Mhm.
you hate to brush over it because you tell the story over and over again, right?
Yeah,
Like someone comes in
yeah.
like,
yeah.
so how'd you get into cigars, right? Like, so, um, the short and sweet of it is
Hmm.
is so I'm originally from Oklahoma City. I went to the University of Oklahoma, so I'm a Sooner. And when
Hmm.
I was in school, I had the opportunity. I won a program that allowed me to study abroad, and they paid for it. So I took advantage of that, and I went to a place called Costa Rica and in Central America. And so while a lot of my friends were over in Europe doing the Euro thing, I was
Hmm.
down. Um, so I was. heavy into scuba diving. I worked I didn't really work. I basically bartered my time to get equipment and
Mm-hmm.
training because I couldn't afford,
Mm-hmm.
to be in the hobby. And so it was kind of cool. So I quickly became kind of over a couple of years a dive master, and then whenever I finally had equipment and everything else, I started like kind of this was an opportunity for me not only to go to school, but then also to go and kind of scuba dive all around Panama and Bocas de
Mm-hmm.
Toro, or Coco Island and Coco Beach
Mm-hmm.
in Costa
Yeah.
Rica, and so anyways, and so I went up and traveled all through Latin America. So on the weekends during class, I threw my equipment gear in my bag, and I would go and find different places and go scuba diving, and that's kind of what I did while I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so to kind of speed this up, I had my first cigar with my dad when I graduated in 2000 in Oklahoma City, and didn't really think anything about it. I thought it was kind of a cool opportunity to kind of have
Mm-hmm.
that moment with him. Um, However, in 2001, I moved to Austin, Texas, got into real estate, and started doing real estate development.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2004, um, a friend of mine in San Jose was getting married, and their family had some land. And so I went back down for a little bit. Actually, I was in 2001, I was going to do my master's program. My father got sick, and then I ended up having to come back. And so I had to put that to the side. And then 2004, that's when I got into real estate. And then kind of this opportunity to start building some condos in Playa Samaran, which is off the coast. So we built 16 condos. And during that time, I'd come across a family that actually were making cigars. And so um, people would ask me to bring cigars back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the hang on a second, my other partner over here is getting loud. I'm gonna throw something at his ass.
Is
Just
that
don't
Skip?
throw a cigar. Just don't throw a
Yeah,
cigar.
I'm gonna throw a fucking this bottle on fire on it. Anyway, um, so basically what happened was is this family was making cigars, and so I started buying from them, and then I would give them away as gifts. Someone
Mm-hmm.
came through and they were interested, I would have personalized and give them away. And then I started bringing cigars back and forth. Um, so anyway, on the weekends they would feed me, and we'd have a good time. And anytime there's food on the table, I'm going to be there. So
Yeah.
um, their son wanted to come to the States and wanted to work on
Mm-hmm.
his English. And so I sponsored him, brought him in, and basically kind of partnered up with a local cigar shop here called Heroes and Legacies. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so um, so anyway, so he was here for about 4 or 5 months. He went back. I brought up another one, and then eventually brought up a guy named by the name of Raul Disla, who runs Natsa. And if you are familiar with Steve Saka,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
um, Natsa, Raul runs Natsa, which is where
Mm-hmm.
Steve Saka. But anyways, Raul worked for me here in the States, and so we
Oh.
worked, basically between here and Lubbock, some stuff up in Dallas, and then I brought another guy up named Danilo who still works with Raul in Natsa. Um, and then he worked with Stogies down in Houston, and
Mm-hmm.
then Elite up in Dallas,
Oh yeah.
Cigars and Cafe. So, anyways, long story short, I was trying to, um, it just kind of kept growing. So, shops were like, hey, and so a couple of things had happened. So the condo kind of came and went, and we sold, made some money. And then with the money, then I was trying to, the real estate stuff had kind of slowed down because of the economy slowed down in 2008. And so here I was trying to figure out like how was I going to, basically survive. And this opportunity with the cigar rollers was something that was just kind of like left. So I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
kind of increase that. And really my thought is like, how do I keep this going until the real estate stuff kind of cycles through? So like to this day, I'm still a Texas real estate broker in Texas, even though I don't practice. I mean, unless I'm
Uh-huh.
looking for my own personal kinds of properties and investment opportunities. I mean, that's really the only thing. And Skip and I take advantage of that. We have a whole nother separate company that we do with real estate holdings. But it's really, you're not going to get a Panerai if you keep yelling. How about that? I can't hear you.
Oh, oh.
Oh, sorry.
And
You
smack,
can't,
the
you didn't
hammer
see me
comes
over here
down.
trying to go like this, like so. I'm trying to be polite over here in my little corner.
Mhm.
So no, I'm just kidding. So long story short, I think you know the word had kind of gotten out that I was kind of doing this, and I was local. Skip had a cigar shop, so he worked with Bill, and then somewhere along the line, he had gotten invested. He put some money into a cigar shop, and then eventually ended up kind of taking it over. And then, so I think in 2008, this Hurricane Ike came through and hit
Mm.
their store,
Yep.
and so anyway, so we kind of ran in the same group of people
Okay.
and knew a lot of the same people and had a lot of similar kind of things. And so at that time, um, you know, obviously beer was a big thing. Craft beer was really starting to hop.
Mhm.
Barbecue was a big deal for us,
Mhm.
right? And so we would get together and do these groups on the weekends, and we would go and go check out Snows or Louis Mueller's or Lockhart or whatever. And so smoking cigars,
Mhm.
drinking craft beer, eating barbecue,
Yeah.
right? So what's more Texan
That's a
American than
life.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's life
So
right there. That's a dream.
I know. So after a while, um, Skip had came to me and said, "Hey, I used to buy these cigars. He would take groups down because he had the shop, and he was really good friends with Christian Aurora at the time before they had sold off to Davidoff. And so, um, anyway, so some cigars would be really really done well, and other cigars were kind of whatever. But there was one particular that stood out, and he said, "Hey, can you make something like this?" So we took it apart and started looking at it, and I was with Raul. And kind of a funny story, the local cigar shop. Um, let me finish it. So he gives me the cigar, and I said, I don't have the tobacco here that you need, but I'm going to go to Nicaragua in a couple of weeks, and we'll work on it there. So Raul and I kind of dissected the cigar and said, I think it's got this, this, and this. However, this is Honduran. We don't have that. This is what we would substitute it for. We make up the blend, and we come in, and it's right off. It's a home run. And this cigar was Cro Magnon, the original. And
Oh
um,
wow.
so Charlie Charano is in town, and there was a cigar shop here in Cedar Park called Fume. And Fume had a great, like they had a lot of things going for them. They had great consumer base, good times. They'd open late, um, and they were a Charano lounge. And Charlie Charano, so here's Skip with this cigar, and he gives one to Charlie Charano. He's like, "Hey man, try my cigar." And Charlie's like, "You don't have a cigar." He's like, "Oh, you know." And so he goes, "What's the blend?" So he kind of goes to the blend, and he goes, he says it's a very specific leaf, and he goes, "No, it doesn't." He's like, so he calls me on the phone, "Mike, what does this have?" And I'm like, "This is the blend." Yada yada yada. Charlie's like, "No way." So, anyways, long story short, here comes Raul. I didn't know the connection that Charlie Charano had brought Raul and Esteban, the brothers, over from the Dominican Republic when they were like 16 and 18 years old. 16, yeah, 16 and 18. From the Dominican to Esteli, Nicaragua back in, I don't know, late 90s. And they were
Mhm.
opening up a factory called Latin Cigars. Latin Cigars at the
Wow.
time was a Tarano family, and they had
Mhm.
brought them in. Charlie's dad had brought them in to help create a cigar rolling culture and class to teach them how the techniques of how they did it in the Dominican Republic. So they were
Oh,
making
very
their
cool.
transition from the Dominican to Nicaraguan, and they were kind of investing. And so at the early on, beginning, CAO was actually being done with Perdomo. Perdomo was kind of growing and not really at a point to where he could take on this fast
Mhm.
growing brand. Charlie Charano and his dad were like, "We'll make CAO," and so um, Raul and Esteban were part of blending a lot of the original, CAO Brasilia,
Mhm.
basically all the
Hmm.
whole CAO kind of lineup.
Mhm.
So when Charlie says he's got this kind of um, there's no way it kind of has this blend. Me and two other people that I know of actually even know about this region. So here comes Raul, and Raul was basically saying this is where Esteban like, hey, So there was a connection to these Tarano blends. So long story short, Charlie Tarano was there, and the fact that Raul and Esteban were involved at the early on, basically validated that we were kind of on the right path. The cigar was really good, and Charlie Tarano was like, "Holy shit, this is a really good cigar." From the rip, right? And a lot of guys that are in the industry that are like that, and today's smokers may or may not even know who the Tarano family are, but they're legends within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so just a really cool kind of story to kind of So long story short, um, Skip was using Twitter because back then, if you wanted to get on um,
Mm-hmm.
the Facebook, you had to have a university address, to get onto Facebook back then. And Twitter was really,
The
it was
thing.
still Twitter. Yeah, it was the thing. And so Skip was using Twitter as a way to kind of tell people like what was going on in Galveston after the hurricane, like what was going, road closures in the shop, and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
updating everything and everybody with Twitter. And so when we started kind of going through this journey, his Rolodex of people was really pretty big because he as a guy who worked for Dell and traveled. I mean, he did
Mm-hmm.
mergers and acquisitions and global logistics for Dell. Was had a really strong following and did a really good job of communicating and basically bringing people along the way. And so um, quickly we decided to that this was people were basically saying, hey, I want to try that cigar, and so we made up 5,000 cigars in 2010, and basically fall of 2010. And then when they came in, they sold out. Uh, his kids were over, stuffing little. We sold like 5 packs for $45, and they sold out within 3 days. And so I was on the phone getting people's credit cards, and his kids were over there, stuffing envelopes. And so we quickly decided to open and form Roma Craft Tobacco, which is Michael Rosales, the RO, and the MA for Martin Roma. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
the TX represents for Texas. Most people who are manufacturers are based out of Florida or South Miami, and so there are just these like layers of kind of little nuggets of what we do that are just subtle. We call it simple but substantial, right? So there's a big meaning, it's impactful, but most people would probably just kind of go over their head without really someone telling you like what that is, right? Like it's right in front of you, but you don't see it. Um, so that's so anyway, so that was kind of um, I think Skip probably after it would have either gone and done a cigar on his own. I just happened
Mm-hmm.
to be in a position in a place that it worked out, and so it was a basically from the jump. Um, the funny thing about it is in Texas, you know, regionally, a lot of people who are here, so now you got Cabal, you got Black Label, you have Noel Rojas that's up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the we had to go out and build outside and then come into Texas. And so we had more shops in Pennsylvania, New York, New
Wow.
Jersey, Arizona, calling, going, hey, I've heard about this
Mm-hmm.
Roma Craft stuff. And then the local retail shops are like, nah, it's just you and Skip. It's the local guys, right? And so,
Yeah.
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 and that's part of the game. And so um, it worked out really well. We did a slow, methodical kind of job in kind of
Mm-hmm.
growing the accounts and making sure that, like we want to make $7 to $12 MSRP retail type products
Mm-hmm.
um, for consumers, for people who smoke a lot of cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's who, like,
Like
you
us.
know, yeah. And
Like
so
us.
yeah, so it's not super complicated. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I could go through the economics of what it costs to make a cigar. I think a lot of people know what it costs, and a lot of it is it's we can compare it to the hype of bourbon and some of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of it's packaging, marketing, scarcity. There's a lot of things that drive the economics of pricing.
Uh-huh.
But at the end of the day, um, we want to so. Long story short, that's what Roma Craft is kind of built around, and
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of stayed
I,
true to what to who we are.
I think it's interesting. One of the points you brought up, around the economics of it, I think that there's a lot of people who really don't know what the economics are and what all the different costs are behind a cigar. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I was in a discussion with a number of people that, write about cigars, write about whiskeys and such. Uh, and it was brought up that one of the comments that was brought up was, do you really trust someone who doesn't have a website to back their cigar? And why is it that they don't have a website up? Because it only costs like $15 to $25 just to set up a website. And I came back at them. I said, "You got to understand that $15 to $25 for somebody who's just coming into the industry is a lot of money to put that into a website when they're trying to build their brand, trying to bring out some cigars and try to introduce them into the industry." And this person came back and goes, "Well, I don't know the accounting side of it, so I'm going to back out of it." And so that kind of got me thinking. It was like a lot of people don't understand it, that it's not just
Hmm.
buying the tobacco
Yeah.
and paying the rollers and paying for that. That there's
It's
all
the
of the other
bands, the
aspects of it, from
boxes.
the bands and the cello, if you do cello, and
Hmm.
the boxes and the shipping and the
The
import
taxes.
export taxes and everything else that comes into play, that have an influence on how well your cigar is going to take off on the market, especially when you're brand new.
Well, I think we have this conversation quite often about the website. Like our website is a basic landing page. You can
Hmm.
find uh, there's a Google map that displays where you can zip code information. I don't want to get you guys flagged for anything, so I'm going to be quiet on.
No, no,
But well,
this is fine. You can find
Yeah.
retailers who sell
sure, yeah, it's
RoMa on your website.
basic product. There's really no product information on there. Like
Hmm.
it's just a landing page with general information, how to
Hmm.
contact us and get in contact with with people that you need to. That's it.
Hmm.
For me, I truly and I know some things have kind of shifted where from a social perspective. Um, However, I look at it and go, I go to about 3 or 4 different websites a day. And just real quick, right? So I go to Half Wheel as soon as I wake up, see if there's anything kind of news breaking on FDA. I go to my sports page to kind of get an update on who won whatever. And then I might go to Amazon, buy something, whatever, but to make sure whatever I bought is on its way. And that's really it.
Hmm.
That's really it. Like I don't, if I need to find out um, something, like I don't, rarely do I go to a specific
Hmm.
www.something something.com to find out. I might go to maybe read reviews
Hmm.
or Reddit or whatever, but I don't go to websites. And so the thought process on that is like I so from a marketing perspective, my influence and reach is actually better at being active and engaging through people who
Hmm.
actually engage with us through social media posts, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I'll show you what I mean by that. And you know, Ashred, you've been here before,
Yes, I
but
love
I'll
this.
but I think that for us, you hear how loud this guy is? He's fucking loud as
I
all get.
know, man. I can't
Yeah,
believe you're in the. He needs to
I'm,
go.
he's got to go. But anyways, this is our Roma crap pick of the day, right?
Hmm.
And so I think if you wanted to find out about our brand, it's about the people who post
Hmm.
and smoke. Meaning, you're
Hmm.
going to get more information from your regular lounge and your retailer about, hopefully they're taking you on a journey as to,
Hmm.
what's a good Nicaraguan cigar, what's a Dominican cigar, what's a, you know, um, hey, I'm new and I've only had flavored, but I want to get out of flavored. I want to go into something else. So someone like
Hmm.
Don and his staff, like they should be able to take you on a journey. Like, okay, try this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Come back and talk to me after you try those. Um, After you're done with those, you know what I mean. Like, and they should be able to guide you through
Yeah.
that process, right? I mean, that's
Right.
how I do.
Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
so
it,
go
and it's
ahead.
also kind of like free advertisement almost,
Well,
and it's people who are passionate and you know for me, if I don't enjoy a cigar, I'm not going to post it. Even
Sure.
if it like, so I'm going to post what's good to my palate, and my followers know that I'm not going to post something that I enjoy smoking. So if they've seen it over and over, time and time again, they're going to be like, they'll message me and they're like, hey, what is that? Can you tell me more about it? And interaction starts to happen. And then they go and try it and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. What else do they have? So that
Yeah.
kind of is, to me, I think it's more valuable than if you just posted it on a website, if that makes sense.
No,
No,
it,
for
it
sure.
makes it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's almost that organic type of marketing. It's the organic growth, which is
Right.
much more substantial than your Google, search Google up, land on a website, read a couple of different words
Hmm.
on it, and then go out and make a choice to buy or what have you. And
Sure.
both are valuable, but
Right.
if you can do it through organically, through that word of mouth,
Hmm.
I love the Rumacraft pick of the day. In fact, I've had three of my Rumacraft pictures be chosen as pick of the day over the past
Hmm.
couple of years on it.
That's awesome.
Uh,
Yeah. So think of it this way, right? Again, I'll use my background with real estate, and um, and this is probably a lot of information, but since this is I think it's really relevant. So I am a um, customer, like basically we offer a service. Like this is a
Hmm.
customer service driven.
Hmm.
Yes, we have a product, but at the end of the
yep,
day, it's about the service, right?
Hmm. Yep.
My service is that I find the best available tobacco, age it properly, store it correctly, find really good retail partners that will do the same thing,
Hmm.
and then find the connection in between, doing on the back end side to make sure that it draws, that it tastes well, and the Mambaco pops. That's what we call our tobacco is Mambaco. And that it functions and that it delivers a good, now taste is very subjective, right?
Hmm.
But you know the physical nature of the actual tobacco, the quality of the tobacco, that is not
Hmm.
like that. So I take, but at the end of the day, like we are a service provider, and
yeah,
within that, um, in real estate, you could be the if you're a cook, you can be the best chef, but you may not know how to run a kitchen. If you're
Right.
in real estate, just because you have the ability to sell a house doesn't make people call you on the phone to say, hey,
Correct.
please show me this house or help me find a house. And so, but the most powerful thing that you could do is referral by business, or
Hmm.
referral based business.
hmm
So,
Hmm.
and what
Right.
I mean by that is like if let's say you guys are having a casual conversation and you're like, hey, this weekend we went to go look at a couple houses. Oh yeah, like did you actually have an agent? No, we just kind of drove through and picked up a flyer, or we were using
Hmm.
whatever
Zillow.
website to, yeah, which is um, which makes sense. If people just want to kick tires and just kind of want basic information, Zillow is great to kind of give you a
Right.
range for what that house is.
Right.
But if you want someone to open the door for you and let you in and make an appointment and show you and
Hmm.
then tell you about all the features and upgrades and everything else, Zillow is not going to have that information,
No.
right? If you wanted to say, hey, now what's the process of buying a home? I've never gone through that process. Let me take you on that journey. Let me show
Hmm.
you how to maximize your credit scores to get the best interest rates, and the
Hmm.
understanding when your taxes are, all the things that go into buying a home. But if I do a good job for you, you'll tell three people, right? If I
Hmm.
do a bad job, you'll tell 25 people. You know what I mean? Like
yep.
everybody,
Hmm.
it's
Oh
it's what
yeah.
we've become, right?
Yeah.
I remember when Wendy's changed their French fries about 12 years or so ago,
Oh my
hmm
goodness.
and
hmm
and it
That
was
was
like,
like World War Three.
yeah, hashtag fail. I remember like what is this hashtag fail? It's like, people were pissed. It's like,
Hmm.
but no one ever told you like how great they were before, and so they think they do something great, and all of a sudden they change it, and all of a sudden it's like now
Hmm.
their French
Well,
fries are
you can go
hot
back to
garbage.
even the most famous one of Coca-Cola with New Coke. When New Coke came out, and everybody was
Hmm.
just, oh, this is horrible, this is terrible, and all
Sure.
of the negative
Hmm.
media came out about it, even even made the news,
Right.
Yeah.
but no one ever said, how good the original recipe Coca-Cola
Hmm.
was, because it was just, I mean, that's what
Well,
it
well,
was.
they did in a way because of
Yeah.
the volume of Coca Cola that they sold,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And then whenever the, but again, it, you know, everything at some point in time, you know, there's scales of economy that have to take place, right? And so from a, you know, if you're mass producing that much Coca Cola,
Hmm.
and you say, you know what, there's only so much, you know, regular sugar cane that we can use, so we've got to make a switch, and we've got to use the synthetic whatever, you know, who knows what that is, right? You know, and that the correlation to cigars is like you guys were, you know, when we were kind of in the pre-room, like, hey, I love Pro-Magnum. Well, you know, there's been a couple of times in our tenure that we've had to stop production on Pro-Magnum because I can't get good, high quality,
Hmm.
grade types of Connecticut broadleaf at a
Right.
price point that I feel is a price point that makes sense for our model.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I'll kind of give you some examples on that. We've also done the same thing with Neanderthal. There was a time whenever San Andres Mexican San Andres Maduro was unavailable, so we had to stop production. Now, every time that I know that we have to stop production, I know that there's a hardcore following for those brands that
Hmm.
when we do put it back in there, we have to make sure that it's as good, if not better, than the original. Because again, people are going to tell you, "Oh, this is
Hmm.
not the
Oh, it's
same."
not the same, and you can tell.
Even if it was part of the
Hmm.
original production run before there was a change, it's like, "Oh, I got this Pro Magnon. This is not the same." It's like, okay, well, yeah, it's probably been eight. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee you that was from the first run, and you know, it's just a mental thing, and you just want to
Hmm.
complain. So that happens too. But you just, you
Yeah.
know, but the reality of it is, I mean, there's available tobacco, but it's
Hmm.
but if there's a huge price jump, and so let's say, for example, I'm using Connecticut River Valley tobacco, and my price point is anywhere between $32 to $36 a pound, and our we call them yields, which is how many pounds per thousand does it take to make 1,000 cigars. So in that yield, if I'm paying, let's say, $35 and I'm at 16 pounds per thousand, but the yield would actually go up and it's going to be 18 to 19 pounds per thousand, and the price has gone up
Price
to
is going to go.
$45, right? Quickly,
Hmm.
economically, I can still make the cigar,
Hmm.
but I'm going to have to adjust my price
Hmm.
a
For that.
significant amount of money, right? Because
Right.
maybe originally it's, you know, it's 75 cents, 65 cents for the wrapper to put it on there just for just the material.
Hmm.
But yet, whenever my yields go up, I've got now maybe $1.25, $1.30 in the
Hmm.
wrapper leaf because my yields have gone up. And
Right.
so if I tell people at the beginning of the year, yeah, I can make that cigar, but I'm going to sell it at X, and then the retail is going to sell it at Y, then economically it doesn't make sense for me to continue that
Right.
product out because I'm going to lose money just to
In
satisfy
the
the
end.
demand, right?
Right.
Or I'm going to raise the prices so much that people who were paying a certain amount are going to be like, well, I'm not paying $4 more for that cigar,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
or you know, whatever it ends up
Hmm.
being, right, mathematically.
Right.
And so those are things that from a company perspective that you always have to take in consideration
Hmm.
because we Mother Nature dictates what we're able to do and not do
Hmm.
based on
Right.
what it wants to produce, right? So,
Hmm.
um, you know, and then you factor in, you know, post COVID and the sales, how they accelerated through cigar sales and the consumption that
Hmm.
accelerated, and so you know you're starting to see a lot of that level off. So long story short, there's a ton of things that have to be in play, and I think that, you know, one of the things that Skip and I are really good at is that one, we're business people that
Hmm.
have a passion for making cigars versus
Hmm.
just being passionate about making cigars but don't know how to run a business. And
Right.
so, um,
I want to, I want to pause you on that thought, because I want to get back to that, but
sure,
we need to take a break for news and
Hmm.
events.
let's go.
What events do you have, Red?
Well, the one that is coming up that we posted and we are actually going to be there is NFG. Look at this. So there's
NFG, yes.
yes. So it's no fuckeries given. No fucks given. I can say it. It's after that. No fucks given.
It's after 9 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, it's after 9 o'clock. So no fucks given. So here we are. Here's this year's theme. And in fact, Roma Craft will be there.
Yes.
Michael will be there. So come by, and it's Craft Tobacco's boutique. It's the biggest one. There are still some tickets available. I think there's about 20 left, maybe
I
even less than that. I think it's going to be
I
less.
think so. Yeah, I think it's gonna be
So
right around there.
so it's always a good time. You know, you have the Friday night roast, then Saturday you actually have the event to go buy unique or really good package deals that are just kind of like a steal. That's what I every time NFG comes around, I'm like, man, I'm able to get this pack for this much. This is I'm stealing it. And then it's lunch, and I mean it's just always a good time, getting to meet new people. So that is March 7th, 8th, and 9th, and it's always a fun time. I think I've been is this my 5th year, I think.
I
So I
yes, I
think it's
think
my
this is
5th
gonna be
year.
this is gonna be my fifth
So
year too.
it
And
it's always a great time.
but before you go on to the next one,
Uh-huh.
because I mentioned a surprise, we even gave a hint out of it. At our table this year, we have got the 16-ounce beer can glass or
Hmm.
that
Okay.
we're offering, and it's got our logo on there. You can see
Hmm.
how just beautifully etched that is.
It
This
is.
is a really nice glass.
I'm ex- I'm
I,
excited. I love my beer glasses.
we
For
are
real.
only going to have 48 of these available, so make sure you come by our table and pick one of these up. I'm so excited about these. Came in last night and so excited to see it. So that was my surprise.
That was your surprise. And then I'll let you tell about the other event that we're doing.
Oh, I don't remember what the other event. Oh, well,
You said, well, there
I,
was two of them.
there's two events. Now I don't remember what it was.
Oh no,
You
and I don't either. That's why I threw it to you.
All right. Well,
So
let's leave it at the one event,
yeah.
and because I want to get back to talking with Michael. I wanted to
Hmm.
talk. We got some new things that are coming out, and one of the
Hmm.
things that's fun about January and the New Year is that there's new spirits that are always coming out, and
Hmm.
you know. Diageo, Remy Cointreau, Pernod Richard are all coming up with different things. Whiskey or Whistle Pig,
Oh yes.
we've seen a lot of
Hmm.
different distilleries that are coming up with their pre-made old-fashioned cocktails and pre-made Manhattan cocktails.
Hmm.
And that I mean, I've had some really good ones and I've had some really bad ones. This
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
I'm really interested in, and it's by Whistle Pig, and it is
Hmm.
called the Dank and Dry Old-Fashioned Cocktail.
Hmm.
Now, here's the thing that's interesting on it. Vermont distillery Whistle Pig launched a product to help make dank dry January a little danker. It's a non alcoholic, ready to drink, old fashioned cocktail made
Okay.
from 100% rye, non whiskey, and Vermont cannabis terpenes that were
Hmm.
cultivated in whiskey barrels.
So I'm interested to try now for me because I did dry January, and due to health reasons, it's turning into dry February, and I'm hoping by March I'll be able to enjoy my whiskeys, my ryes, my beers, my wines. I've missed them, um, but I'm interested to try because I've had some mocktails and they're okay. It's not as good as the original one,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it's kind of like the pre old fashioned. Some of them, like the already made ones, they're okay, and there's some that have been really really good, and some of them are awful, and some that have been so I'm interested to see, and I would be willing to try it. I take
Oh,
one for the team.
I,
Take
I,
one for the
I'll,
team.
I'll try it too. This part, you know how I love my scotch. Okay.
Mhm.
And Macallan is the most well-known brand of scotch that there is.
Mhm.
It has come in at some of the highest prices. I've seen some bottles that have gone on auction for like, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 million. Well, they have released a new expression. Tales of the Macallan, Volume 2, that pays
Hmm.
homage to its founder, Alexander Reed. And it is coming in at MSRP of the low, low amount of $89,000.
Let me run out and go get that right now.
What is so funny is in the article it states anyone who's received a very generous amount of cash this Christmas and you're just looking to blow it on something, consider the Macallan's newest release.
No, okay. Yeah,
But
I
anyways,
didn't get that.
no, I didn't get that. Did you get a $89,000 Christmas cash award, Michael?
No, I got skipped over. I don't know what. I need to go ask and figure out what happened to me. So
Oh,
yeah,
golly.
you guys need to upgrade your talent on your show. I mean you gotta go get some Rafael Nadal's or those kind of guys too. They'll buy it for you. So.
Well, just like the story you just told us, it's a slow growth pattern.
So, man, well, I hope you guys get there and then invite me, and then
Yes.
I'll weasel my way into to getting some of that. So,
Well,
I love how
when
he
we
played on words, Weasel.
yes, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation, and we're going to get into what is behind the weasel. So
And we're also going to get into the bands because I want to highlight the bands.
we will be right back. So that was our news and events, something that we're trying to do to make us a little bit relevant, and hopefully find, to where people will want us, let's say, like, hey, we'll sponsor the news and events for you.
I got you. But
But
you're gonna have to
I gotta
do. You
remember.
have to find some. You can't skip out the. You got to remember like what your events are. You can't.
Yeah, I know. I can. Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't write it down. So
that's okay. That's all right.
normally it's not this bad.
That's
No,
okay. No,
normally, but hey, we have fun.
Yeah,
We have
that's
we're
right.
fun.
having fun. So
Um,
this.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, you brought up the bands.
I brought up the bands
I'm
because
glad you did.
uh,
Let me grab my phone. I gotta grab my phone. Go ahead.
this is one of my favorite things because Graybeard and I are also in a group called the Leaf Mob, and we had one person, and anytime anyone was able to pull off a Roma Craft band without tearing it to shreds and bits and pieces, we'd always post a picture of it on our middle finger and post it, kind of like a fuck you kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then there's ways that you can do it. So, one way that
Right.
I did mine was I would actually kind of either pull it
Slide it over the
down,
fire. Yep.
slide it over the fire, and just pray it didn't catch or I didn't burn myself or burn my nails because I have actually burned my nails doing that. Or trying to like slowly not rip the band and kind of like have it go the other way. So when we went down to visit you at your beautiful headquarters, I was like, "What is up with the bands? Like, it's kind of like a fuck you. I mean, like, what is up?" So please tell everybody about the bands. Yeah, I
Okay.
see.
So in 2012, so we officially 2011 we officially launched at the Orlando Trade Show, and um, now keep in mind, so at the time, um, so kind of early 2011. So this is kind of gets back into the story. So Cro-Magnon, and at the time there was really no name for Cro-Magnon. It was just um, the cigar that we were importing in. There was no name. There was no branding.
Hmm.
And at the time, labels in the industry were getting out of hand. I mean, you had cigars that actually had labels that covered the whole thing.
Whole cigar.
And
All right.
so, yeah, and so the hashtag was, what's that taste like? What's that? Can't you can't smoke the band. Like, how much of the pack? Like what does it even fucking mean? And so we were still kind of working on. So a lot of these retailers who I were, basically had relationships with the rollers were saying, hey, this cigar you guys are making. And so we had kind of tagged the name Cro-Magnon and was kind of working on that and kind of working on the project. And a lot of guys were coming up to me going, hey, I supported you with the rollers, and this cigar that's out there is really starting to get a lot of buzz and people are asking about it. You going to sell it to me? And I'm like, well, it's not really my cigar. I'm kind of making it for Skip. And um, so I go to Skip and I'm like, dude, like I've got 12 accounts that are ready to bring this in. And so at the same time, I get a phone call from Esteban in Nicaragua, and he says, "Hey, there's no more broadleaf." So Skip's like, "Well, what do you mean there's no broadleaf? Go buy some broadleaf. How much money does he need?" It's like, "Well, that's not really how it works. There's like a window and availability, and everyone kind of goes in, they pick what they need, and then when it's all said and done, once it's
That's
kind of
it.
exhausted, that's it." And
Mhm.
um, so he had a pretty good relationship with Jonathan Drew, and so we go down and this is May 2011, April 2011, and so we make an appointment. We go see Jonathan Drew. They had just built out, DE1, and so Jonathan's like, well, yeah, we have broadleaf, but I can't sell it to you because we're in a free zone, and so. Um, it's like, but go call Gustavo, talk to Gustavo, tell him, I'll call him if you need any help, whatever. And so Gustavo, which we were already kind of working with on a lower tier, we meet with Gustavo Kira, and Gustavo's like, okay, here's the broadleaf. Okay, great. How much can we buy? He's like, well, for the stuff that you want, there's only so much of that. There's about 350 packs of that. And so we kind of knew, basically kind of talked to us a little bit about, how difficult, some years there's really great years of Connecticut broadleaf, and other years there's really not. And whenever it's not, they use it up in olive. Good job. Well done. The um, and so we're like, okay, well, we knew right away we had to figure out, okay, well, if broadleaf was going to be an issue, we've got to figure out an alternative, which is why we came up with Aquitaine. So Aquitaine is a region of France where they found the first Cro-Magnon skull, and it's the very same filler leaf. Well, that's the saber tooth, but yeah, that's
Okay.
that brown band, yeah,
Yeah,
is
the
part
brown
of
band.
Aquitaine, yeah,
Yeah.
and so so it's the same blend. So it's a Lajero priming, so it's got a lot of spice.
Mhm.
It's got a lot of depth and richness. I mean, it's not the same kind of, like, technically Aquitaine is a stronger cigar on
Right.
nicotine
It is.
level
It
than
is.
Cro-Magnon is, right?
Yeah.
But Cro-Magnon is like, a Guinness, or
Mhm.
this big, bold richness kind of flavor bomb, where
Right.
the Habano is more like this kind of spicy.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's just a little. It's not quite the same, but so the idea was that, so we ended up buying 500 pounds of the Aquitaine Lajero, or the Habano Lajero, and we start making both Cro-Magnon and Cro-Magnon Aquitaine.
Mhm.
And so then we go over and we say, okay, well, if that's going to be a problem, then we need types of tobacco that are usually always available. He's like, well, I've got Brazilian Arapiraca and I have Connecticut. So we blended the Intemperance EC for Ecuador, Connecticut, and the BA for
Mm.
Mhm.
Brazilian Arapiraca. And so the idea with the Intemperance brand was this kind of prohibition kind of piece that
Mhm.
talked about. So when we sat down and we were talking about, yep, that's it. That's a great Connecticut, and that's a great
Mhm.
the whiskey rebellion. So
Mhm.
it was like, what are some of the things that we knew right away FDA was going to be a problem. We didn't know
Mhm.
where it was going to come into play.
Mhm.
We knew taxation, state laws, anti-tobacco was going to be an issue. So this statement piece of this church and state and legalization,
Yeah.
not was going to be a factor. And so we knew that right away, so we decided to make the intemperance brands, which was going to be a very specific price point in this, sub
Mhm.
$10 kind of category. Even then, it was a $5 to $7 price point when we launched, um, and we weren't going to make very big cigar sizes because, obviously, it was really more of kind of an intro kind of line into what we were trying to do. But
Mhm.
there would be always available types of tobacco, and so we launched with those four brands. No
Mhm.
bands, and at the time we only had 25-30 accounts, and so the intemperance came on with the band first. It's a little smaller, um, It's got embossed. It's a very sharp, kind of clean, kind of style band.
Hmm.
But we launched with no bands. So we heard for about 6 months or so, why don't you guys get bands? There's no bands. I can't tell what they are. They're all a bunch of no, they're all brown. Like, how do I tell them apart? And it's like, um, so when we
Read the
finally
box.
decided to put, yeah, so or the box helps, right? Or it's like, oh, it looks like a bundle cigar inside a box, and so, but we weren't really sure. Again, and we started the factory. We were behind someone's house, so we took basically like a washroom area. Actually, I think I have a picture of it on the wall. We took so behind the house of Esteban's house. There's like this area where you would basically wash clothes.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna do my best to focus in on this. This is like a 20
Oh,
by 50, but this is behind someone's house. So if you were to
Yeah.
uh-huh.
have wash lines, like where you dry your
Hmm.
clothes on wash lines or whatever, this is the area. So
Hmm.
we put a long wall, gated, bridged in, cabinets. We started putting rollers behind it.
Hmm.
And we were in this space between 2011 to the early parts of 2013, where we eventually ended up building kind of Nico Sueño, which is in downtown Esteli. But this was basically behind Esteban's house, um, and so we have about 72 pairs or 72 people that work in the factory that um, and so early on, we didn't have the space for packaging. We didn't have the space to put labels and UPCs and all these other things. And so, and again, we were really really small at the time. People would work their regular day jobs at other factories, big
Hmm.
factories, and then they would come over to Esteban's house at nighttime. And then between like 6 to 9, they would roll 150, 200 cigars. And then that was kind of our production schedule
Hmm.
until we got to the bigger factory. And so the long and skinny of that is that um, you know when we finally decided to put on bands, we wanted to do something that was really nice and elegant. So it's just a very
Hmm.
simple white
Clean.
underneath band with the cave art.
Hmm.
Um, but but then the primary band of the black or brown to kind of
Hmm.
distinguish. And so it was really this big fu of here's your fucking band. You know what I mean? Like so.
Yes.
Um, but the reality of it is that we chose to use a wine paper, so it's a thicker type of paper
Hmm.
compared to what a lot of people um, put on for on their cigars. And so the other day I was smoking a very very expensive cigar, and I'm going to try to share this picture with you, but there's nobody's
Oh.
cigar is labeled there. But when I went to go peel it off, it was literally basically glued to the back of the cigar,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
right?
and
And
it
now
puffs it
here's the
up.
thing: you
Hmm.
might complain about how difficult our bands are to get off, and you might pinch the tobacco in that process, but you'll never find a cigar glued or smudged or
Right.
anything. Like, it's very clean, right? And you're using
Hmm.
white bands, so you have to make sure that your hands are clean, or you'll get resin on the white band.
Hmm.
Um, so the meticulous OCD of what we do, um, and again, um, it would be different. Um, it's like buying business cards. When you buy, like, if you said, hey, I want 500 business cards, it's
Hmm.
$79. But if you buy 1,000 or 2,000, it's
Hmm.
$99, right? So it's like once
Mm.
they get it all set up and they go into the production run, your cost of per like the setup costs more than the actual production of the
Hmm.
paper itself. And so, we go in and buy 3 or 4 or 5 years worth of them at a time. It's like now we're stuck with them. So it's not like, so um, that's kind of so we're stuck with them. People are stuck with them. But it
well,
is what it is.
well,
But it's a high quality paper.
Yeah.
we like them, and
Hmm.
uh, we do cigar reviews ourselves. And one of the things that will take points off when we're reviewing the cigar is if when we go to take that band off,
And it rips it.
if it rips part of that
Blue.
wrapper, or we see that wrapper starting to come unraveled because the band was holding it together, I'm going to knock some points off
Hmm.
Sure.
on it, because when you're putting together a cigar, it's the whole presentation, and the band is part of that
Hmm.
presentation, and how well. that presentation goes from
Hmm.
the initial smoke of it, lighting it up, the burn, removing the band, the
Hmm.
continued smoke after the band, and so forth. All that comes into play. And so I love that you guys put that type of due diligence in to the quality of your bands. Because, whether or not the band rips or not, I'm not going to take any points off if the band rips and I can't take it off
Right.
perfectly, because that could be just me not, loosening up, trying to take it off before that glue has had a chance to heat up. But whether if it rips the wrapper, absolutely 100%, that's part of the quality of
Right.
the craftsmanship of what you're putting together.
Hmm.
Well, and keep in mind the cigar that I was smoking was a plus $40 cigar,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that's like when you get into that level, like come on,
Like,
you know what I mean?
fun.
Like
Come
that's
on. It should.
and from whether it's $10 or
Hmm.
45, 50, it's still it
Hmm.
shouldn't be um
Shouldn't rip it.
right, and you shouldn't be in that kind of pace for speed
Hmm. Right.
that the attention to details gets lost, and
Right.
that's
E-
just
e-
really what it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you talked about weaseling your way in, and we've got the weasel team sitting behind there. In fact, in just the different angles that you've been sitting, I see two representations of the weasel, and I saw another one. Yep, there's the weasel over there
Hmm.
as well,
And then
and
there's the
another one.
the
Yeah,
Jedi
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Tell us about the weasel.
And then
So
Weasel Fest.
sure, yeah, no, that's so it's funny that you guys talked about reviewing cigars. So let me start with a local conversation that I just had on a Patreon account. Well, with somebody who has a pay per. They called me and said, "Hey, have you heard of X Reviewer?" And I said, "I don't think so." And they said, "Well, they just reviewed one of your cigars." And I said, "Oh, that was very kind of them." My philosophy has always been. Let me start with this. If you make 12, 15, $20 an hour or more, God bless you, whatever, if you have a job and you can afford to buy cigars or some kind of income, you can afford to buy cigars. If you go into a humidor that has 1,200 different variations and you pick one of mine, that is the highest compliment that someone can pay to me, right? So that's 1 hour's worth of your work, half of 1 hour's worth of your work that you're choosing to buy one of my
Hmm.
products, right?
Right.
And in that context, like that has real meaning and value, like to me,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? That's a very humbling thought, because there's so many other options out there,
Hmm.
and there's some great cigars out there too, right? So the fact that people walk away with our product is something that I don't take lightly. Number one. Number two, um, if you're a reviewer and you buy the cigar,
Hmm.
then you have absolutely every right to either say trash or pass or
Hmm.
thumbs up,
Right.
thumbs down, or hot garbage or whatever you want to say, right?
Hmm.
Band's too fucking hard to get off, uh, you know, whatever, right? So
Hmm.
you have that ability to say whatever you want because you paid for it. Now, if you hit me up and you say, "Hey, send me some cigars and I'll review it for you," then there's a different context. Like I'm actually saying, "Okay, well, I'm looking for a kind gesture because you're asking me to
Hmm.
be kind to you." And so
Hmm.
there's like this, so if I got a review and it was less than what I thought it might be, I might be a little salty, right? Or if
Hmm.
I'm a sponsor to your whatever and you poop all over the cigars, well, now your
Hmm.
opinion is your opinion, right? And
Right.
you're gonna say, I'm not gonna let someone buy my opinion, and that's great. But if you, again, I go back to, if you pay for it, you can say whatever you want to because you bought
Right.
it. Like so,
Right.
Right.
that's just how we've kind of always kind of thought about reviews. So let me back up. So back in 2007, 2008, reviewing was starting to become a thing, and at the
Hmm.
time, um, you had these little pop up websites. They weren't really big, but they would come up and they would say, "Hey, if you give me a box of cigars, I'll do a review." And it's like, well, do you really need a full box of cigars to do a review? Like, I don't understand the thought process of that.
Great.
So
Yeah.
Three
anyway, so you
cigars.
Yeah, so basically you would see them kind of coming down the halls at the PCA or IPCBR or whatever it was called back
Mm-hmm.
then, RTDA, and you're like, oh shit, here come the weasels, right? Because they it just was just a way to kind of to label somebody, right? So it was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that was weasel. So then it's like this word kept kind of popping up, right? Um, so if I come over to if I say, hey, I'm gonna have some barbecue over at my house, um, and you invite the cousin who always smokes but never has a cigar, so
Mm-hmm.
we all have like a section of cigars that we'll never
Yeah.
smoke,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Make yourself at home to anything that is over here, but
Yeah.
don't touch anything over here because I
Mm-hmm.
know a couple things. You won't appreciate it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
two, these are
Yeah.
the things that I find high value in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
um, now, if it's somebody that really
Would
does enjoy
appreciate it.
cigars and
Mm-hmm.
is an enthusiast and would appreciate it, by all means, like this is open, right? So this would
Mm-hmm.
be weasel level number one,
Mm-hmm.
and this would be weasel level number two, right? So anyway, so the more we kind of started kind of uh like everyone, there's you just want a cigar for the occasion. They smoke about this much, they throw it in the ashtray, they move
Yeah.
on. They don't really finish it. So it's like, why would I
Mm-hmm.
waste a good cigar or a good drink or a good
Yeah.
pour or a good,
Absolutely. Yeah,
scotch
100%.
or whiskey,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
One of my
So
pet peeves is coming over to my place, and I mean I've got 200 bottles of whiskey on top of my bar, not counting what's inside my bar, and
yeah,
someone coming over and reaching, for a, what I consider a low dollar bottle, 50, $60 bottle, and saying, okay, do you have some Coke I can mix this with? No, but I've got something else that you can mix with Coke.
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah. So 100%, right? Now the so so the weasel thing kind of lingered around for a little bit. So before Zycar had sold off to Quality Imports, they were having a sales team meeting. And so they were kind enough. They invited us up. We were in Kansas City doing an event in Outlaw, and they invited us over. And so when we came over, we handed out some cigars, right? And they were like, "Oh man, we're Weasel Team 6. Like we knew if we invited you over, you would bring us some cigars, and so we were going to feed everybody anyway. So they invited us over. So they didn't really have a lot of money invested, but they got all these cigars. So anyway, so Zycar was actually the people who dubbed Weasel Team 6. So they had so when we got back, then all of a sudden it's like we were sending them because the Zycar team were really they were great partners for us, and so it got to the point to where when we would do events, whether Texas or Kansas City or New York or wherever, they would send over one of what are we celebrating? Um,
I have no idea
We
because
have no idea how the balloons.
sometimes balloons just pop up.
I thought it might be the thought bubble of what the other event was. So you finally, since you, uh, yeah. So, so the
Well,
Zycar team became really, really good friends with us. So, and they're the ones that dubbed the Weasel Team 6.
yes.
I,
And the other event is Nestor's birthday party tomorrow in Miami at the City Cigar Lounge. So that's the other event.
Yeah. Woohoo! So
Woohoo, birthday! That's what the balloons were for, to
that's
celebrate the
right.
birthday.
there we go.
So
I
then there's one more level. It's the Jedi Weasel.
Hmm.
So let's say Graybeard that I come over and I see your high dollar whiskey selection and and or even cigars, right? But we'll use a whiskey in your case since you have a
okay.
nice collection. And I said, oh man, and I start off low. And I'm like, oh, you got some of this, you got some of that. That's a great pour. That's a really good pour. And then I get to the one that I've seen, but I've never had. And I go, man, what's that taste like? And you go, you know what? I'm going to give you a pour because you asked about it and you're feeling friendly. And so you go and you grab that bottle and you decide to there you go
Yeah.
and you share that bottle with me, right? So in a way, in the cigar world, it's like, what's that taste like? Oh, I wanted to see that, you know
Hmm.
x and x, whatever, release a cigar. It's really hard to get, you know what's that taste like? And you hand me one. It's like, well, now I got to reciprocate for you. You know what I mean? Like now that you
Hmm.
shared
Hmm.
with me, I got to share with
Right.
you.
Right, right.
But it's like this Jedi mind trick. You know, it's like,
Hmm.
I somehow, you know, I use my words to make you feel like, compelled to share with me, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are some levels of weasels that are bad, but for the most part, they're all good. And that's kind of the BOTL, or Sisters of the Leaf, Brothers
Hmm.
of the Leaf, kind of the camaraderie, the group
Hmm.
sharing, which is kind of what Cro-Magnon is, right? Kind of going back to the
Hmm.
barbecue and the cigar community
Yeah.
Hmm.
and culture, right? So that's anyway. So that's a little bit of the weasels. So we have dubbed the weasels as part of people who follow our I remember the first time I ever met Cynthia Fuente. I was at Heroes and Legacies, and she came in and
Hmm.
I said, oh man, I'm a big fan. And she was like, hey, here's a cigar from my granddad's personal reserve or whatever, before they even had vans.
Hmm.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And
Hmm.
then in 2014, I was doing an event in Maryland, and someone said, hey, I saw you guys working on something at the factory. Man, I bet that's good. I wonder what that tastes like. And I happen to have one, not even thinking about it.
Hmm.
I pulled one out and I handed him a cigar. I'm like, here you go, try it out. Tell me what you think. And that, so those moments in my journey of being a fan and
Hmm.
being an enthusiast in the tobacco world, and meeting great people is
Hmm.
kind of my way of, if someone, if I post something on social media and you happen to be following and go, hey, I saw you guys, you know, working on the new Pennsylvania Cro-Magnon, like what's that taste like? And I happen to have one. Of course, I'm going to give one to you because you've taken the time to invest in
Hmm.
me, and
Yeah.
I'm going to
Hmm.
return that, right? So,
Well, that's what the community is about. Let's
Hmm.
take a break. We need to do our final verdict, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation. All right, final verdict. I'm going to start off because I'm actually doing the pairing, and then we'll let you tell everybody what you think about the cigar you're smoking. So I've been smoking the Cro-Magnon and pairing it with the Rebel Distillers Collection, and this one is a barrel pick from Specs here in the DFW area. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the spirit itself because I'm doing a review and that's going to be posted up on our website this weekend. And I wanted to drive people to our website and encourage you to read the review on it. I got to say, this pairing has really hit me. Uh, in the conversations, we've talked about how it's really hard for us to really get into a pairing when we're having a conversation with a guest
Hmm.
because we're focused in on the conversation and
Hmm.
less on the actual pairing
Hmm.
itself. But I did hit a note as I hit the middle third, the second third, into the middle of this Cro-Magnon that just stopped me and paused me. And I glanced over at my Glen with my bourbon in there,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Really? Did I just pick that up?" And went back before the second time, and sure enough, it was. And going from cigar to the bourbon just brought out those beautiful, sweet Luxardo type cherry notes out of the bourbon that wasn't there without the cigar. And now you do pick up, very subtle on the, nuances of
Hmm.
cherries in this, but not enough to where it just, paused me for a moment. I got to say that this is a pairing that I want to revisit and take some time and really dig into. As
Hmm.
far as the Cro Magnum itself, fantastic cigar. This has been one of my favorites, one of my favorite of the lines that RoMa Craft produces. In my opinion, this cigar right here is 100% box worthy.
Okay. I don't think you can tell. Like, I didn't like mine, right? It's like to the nub. As I said, vodka is like it's especially. I don't know. It was like around the fall. It was like 2 or 3 years ago when I first was introduced to it, and I kept buying them, and you know where we purchase them. they kept selling out. So then I had to go to other places and try to pick it up, and they were quickly selling out. This one, is always, I would get 2 boxes, honestly, of this because this is just like, it's unique, it's different. And I was going to ask, tell the blend on the Baca. What is the blend of this?
Oh man, I think so. It's an African Cameroon wrapper. Off top of my head, I'd have to go back to my notes. One, we haven't produced it in probably a year and a half. So off top of my head, um, and I probably have some notes, but you put me on the spot. So it's but it's um, I don't even want to lie. So I would have to look it up. I can text it to you. But basically, it's an African Cameroon. It's
Hmm.
that the original. So the African Cameroon wrapper is by far one of the most
It's
expensive
Yeah.
that's out there, right? So it
hmm
can range from 45 to about 69, $72 a pound, right? So
hmm
um, very difficult. So
hmm
that comes. So originally we were buying it from Gilberto Oliva after they had sold the Oliva cigar company. Gilberto, one of the sons, actually was doing he was growing, and then that didn't really. I think he kind of pulled out of that, and then so now we were having to source through Merifilm. So it's been and so it's been great. Um, anyways, and so it was something that we wanted to do. That's kind of our portfolio for the most part is more on this heavier, richer kind of notes, and I think the
hmm
Baca has this finesse to it
Yeah.
that allows a lot of the notes to really kind of shine
hmm
without being like super nicotine heavy punch punch
Right.
punch punch. Just like the Volstead, right? Like the
Oh
Volstead is
yeah.
like this really this
And
decadent,
that one's quickly
you know,
becoming my is
yeah,
my second one. That one's quickly
yeah,
becoming my second one. And I think that the reason I enjoy it is because like you were saying, you can taste the notes of it. It's like in the Cameroon is different than any Cameroon that I've had.
no,
It's distinctive. Y'all have made it. It's very distinct from other Cameroons,
sure,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
um, so I think that's kind of, why I enjoy it so much because it's a true Cameroon, you know.
no.
So I
With,
mean,
without
it's
without without being too mild or without being too like it allows it,
yeah.
and I think that that's something that from a consumer perspective, um, I think there are Cameroon, whenever it's done well, is phenomenal, right? And I think
Yeah.
that there are some manufacturers that have done an awesome job of doing it.
Mhm.
But there's definitely this point where you hit to where you want a little bit more out of the
Mhm.
cigars that you have. That
Mhm.
like, okay, the cigars draw fine. There is some nice
Mhm.
flavors to it, but it's kind of flat. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't level up, right? Where
Right.
Mhm.
the Baca has like this third gear that it kind of
Yeah.
hits. Like it starts off, it's like Freddie Couples Drive if you watch golf. It just kind
Mhm.
of starts off nice, and it kind of just
Mhm.
it finishes off really really well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's but yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
I wish it was something that we had. One, that the
All of.
prices from the economics would allow
Mhm.
for us to put more out there.
Mhm. Right.
Um, but our goal this year is so it should go into production again in I want to say in the May timeframe. So it would age 4 months
Woo-woo.
after it goes. So May, June, July, August, September. So around September or fall time, we should have a
Okay.
nice run of
And
Baca hitting the market.
I think that's when it was originally, like when it first came out. It's like every time I think about it, it's the fall around.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I always smoke these around Halloween. I don't. I mean, I just buy a whole bunch of them, buy them up when I see them, and that's kind of around Halloween is when I really enjoy it. You know.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Um.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my top three
Mhm.
Cameroons, and
Mhm.
the thing about
Yeah.
Cameroons is that they're beautiful flavors that come from them, but they're a hard wrapper to work with. And like you
Mhm.
said, there's some. brands that do just a phenomenal job with the
Right.
Cameroons, and there's some brands that do a shitty job
Mhm.
with them. You know, it
Mhm.
compared to, not that they're bad cigars. Let me kind of correct myself a little bit. Not that they're bad cigars, but
Mhm.
they just don't really show off what the
The
wrapper can
Cameroon.
do, what the
Right.
Cameroon wrapper can do.
Mhm.
And I've killed, I think, two boxes of the Bacas myself. And
Mhm.
the thing that I love about it is that it
It's pure.
really, it really shows off what that wrapper can be.
Mhm. And I've even had this, which uh, with the Hershey Stout, from
Okay,
Pennsylvania,
yeah.
and I was kind of nervous about putting the two together, but it goes really, really well when you put it with that Hershey's Yangling Stout. It
Didn't
does
you do that
a
on one of
phenomenal.
the shows?
I think I did.
I think you
hmm
did. Yeah.
I think, yeah. So if you're a stout person, definitely put it with that. The Hershey's, I've even done a peanut butter stout with it, and which is kind of, different, unique. And they both did really well together and brought out different things in each other. But this is, you know, I mean, like I said, when they come out, I almost don't want to tell people about it because I want to hoard them myself.
Now,
But
now.
definitely when they come out, and if you see it, grab them because I mean they're phenomenal. It's one of those things that it's for any cigar smoker, someone who's been first starting out, someone who's been doing it as long as we have. It's just a pleasant, happy smoke. You know,
It
it takes
it
you on a
really
journey.
is. All right,
I
we
think that so not to interrupt, but I think that's kind of the neat thing about our portfolio.
well, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead, do your thing. So,
Okay, now,
basically, what I was saying is that I think that that's kind of the neat thing about our portfolio is that there's this wide variety for guys,
hmm
people who want full body punch in your face with Cro-Magnon,
hmm
Neanderthal,
Yeah.
to the softer side with Baca and Volstead, but yet
hmm
are if you retro hell and know how to
Yeah.
that these other cigars are not you know you know they're medium full flavored cigars, right? So
Right.
what
Yeah.
what I love about your cigars, to talking about the retro hail,
hmm
is that every single one of them, from the Aquitaine to the Cro-Magnon to the
hmm
Baca to all of the different ones in the Intemperance line, you get such different, unique flavors in the
hmm
retro hail on them.
Yeah.
And the retro hail is very nice. I mean, it's not
hmm
overpowering. It's not painful. It doesn't
Make you
burn you.
cry.
Yeah, it doesn't make your eyes water on it. All around, what you guys are producing there at RomaCraft, every single one of your lines speaks to the quality that you have just been talking about and what you are wanting to present to each of the consumers.
yeah, I think that there's you think about um I'll put it in whiskey because I think that that's something that a lot of people, or even beer, like if you chase
hmm
beer back when the beer craze was kind of going on, but especially like in whiskey, right? Because you go out and um, you hear people talk about, oh man, this bottle was so good, and then you get behind a certain distillery, and then a couple things happen. The new releases will come out, you'll smell it, and there's like a little high pinch of alcohol. It feels a little flat, tastes a little flat. It doesn't have the same viscosity. It doesn't have the same texture. It doesn't have the same um, notes that and as prices continue to go up
hmm
and hype continues to build, and then you get a chance to try it, drink it, or smoke it, or enjoy it, and it just doesn't really, it doesn't hit right. So let's say
Right.
people follow you guys and you're like, oh man, this cigar X was just phenomenal, I loved it,
hmm
I could, I nubbin it, and I
hmm
whatever, and you know um someone, because people find you guys credible, they like what you guys have to say, they go out and they they go find a new box of whatever, and um, it either hits the same way that
Mm-hmm.
you explained it, or it falls flat, and then
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't really, maybe the cigar is too strong, or doesn't have enough, or this, that, and the other. And
Mm-hmm.
the reality of it is, um, there's with consumption sales continue to rise. There's a demand where manufacturers and distilleries have to feel like they have to meet the need
Mm-hmm.
to put out product a little faster than probably
Hmm.
what they should have or would
Right.
have liked to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with that, there's a lot of dangers with that, because
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, it kind of goes back to the Coca-Cola thing. It's like when people make changes to what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it affects people's reaction. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't meet the expectation, the demand, or the hype, or people will quickly fall off and go find another
Mm-hmm.
product because it didn't meet what the expectation. Does that make sense?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
So
100%.
um so from us, and again, I think that there's a I go back to what I said earlier. If people are willing to use the money that they work for to get to come buy my
Mm-hmm.
products, there's a level of responsibility that I
Mm-hmm.
have to do to make sure that
Yeah.
that cigar is properly aged and delivered
Yeah.
in a way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we age everything 16 weeks. Cro-Magnon,
Mm-hmm.
anything, so Cro-Magnon, Octane Baca, anything that's thicker and heavier tobaccos, we age 16 weeks, which is 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it this way, right? So you go into these bigger factories, they have there are these machines that are like extractors. So if you had moisture in your house, a water leak or whatever, and your carpet is wet, they bring in these
Mm-hmm.
extractors that pull out the humidity to help dry it. They want to prevent mold, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
the tobaccos are wet, same thing. You don't want to have tobacco
Right.
sitting there. You don't want to create mold. So you have to, by doing that, you have to make sure that the room is warm enough to prevent
Right.
that. And so or you can bring in one of these extractors, and basically, by the time that the machine reads that the humidity is 70% and the texture is 70%, and the whatever, they put it in the machine in 2.5 weeks because the extractor is pulling all the humidity out, and then that goes into packaging, right?
Wow.
So this is the same thing with bottles and barrels, right? So if they are like, hey man, we have purchase orders, to have a barrel sit around for 4 years versus 2 years, like that's
Mm-hmm.
just part capital,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and you think about it, like that's money, and obviously we know what angel share is, and for the people that are listening,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't know what that is, it's basically when you open it up, it's the difference from when what it was whenever they topped it versus the evaporation, right? And
Right.
that amount. So you can open up a barrel and it's half of whatever it was whenever they closed it,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden it's
Right.
like that barrel set for 7-8 years, and you have half a barrel. That means, all of a sudden, instead of getting this many bottles out of it, they got to go with this many. That means that price dries up, right?
Right.
So the point of that is to say, well, do you want to wait 7-8 years, 10, 11 years before that barrel is ready to go? Or do you want to do it at 2 when you know
Mm-hmm.
you have a full barrel, they package up and they send it out? And so that experience that the drinker or the consumer gets whenever
Mm-hmm.
they open up something, if it doesn't hit and follow up like they think that it should, there's too many
Mm-hmm.
options out there for them to go to someplace else to find,
Right.
Right.
a
Exactly.
dram
What they're looking
or
for.
any kind of
Yeah.
cigar. Right. So
Right.
anyways, that's the same thing happens to us.
Yep.
But I also want to kind of talk about like the aftertaste of y'all cigars. I know that some people are kind of like, that's kind of weird. But some cigars leave you with not what you smoked. They leave you with different flavors in your mouth, kind of like bitterness and all that. But it's because of the quality that y'all put, the craftsmanship, how y'all have a craft, what y'all consider your craft, right? Y'all's flavor, your aftertaste is beautiful afterwards because it still tastes like the cigar, and I've had some where you don't have that same aftertaste, and it kind of is like a bitterness or a burnt taste to it. And none of y'all cigars have done that, and I think it's because of the care and the quality that y'all make sure that y'all do with y'all cigars. So I think that's something else that's important that as consumers, usually if you have that, I almost didn't want to light up another cigar because I was enjoying the aftertaste. And some people are like, that's
Sure.
really weird. But to me, it's important, you
Oh,
know.
Well,
it's
it's a long finish, right? Like that,
Yeah.
which is what we call
Yeah.
like a long, you have
Right.
a bourbon. It's like the body of the is like it still kind of lingers,
Hmm.
but we call it well fermented tobacco. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day, that's what
Hmm.
it is.
Yeah.
But if you're shortcutting anywhere along that way, you won't have well fermented tobacco. So
Right.
it's well fermented tobacco, and it's also tobacco that has entered into its first maturation phase, and it's well into its first maturation phase, and we
Right.
see that, knowing that, because you do age the cigars, in the aging room for a
Hmm.
longer period of time than what a lot of others do, especially boutiques. Because, like you
Hmm.
said, while it's sitting there in the aging room for 16 weeks, for 4 months, that's revenue that you're not gaining because it's sitting there aging. But you also know that on the other side of it, that the consumers, those who, what we call, not people who smoke cigars, but cigar smokers, those of us
Hmm.
like Red and myself and yourself and, a good number of our viewers, we we expect a certain level of quality. We look for a certain level of quality. We look for a certain level of flavors, complexity, um, transition phases, and
Hmm.
that long finish, that aftertaste in a cigar.
Hmm.
If a cigar taste leaves my palate after I've blown the smoke out of it, then that cigar is like what you described earlier, is kind of flat. It's
Hmm.
not something that draws me back into it
Right.
and says, okay, yes, I want to take another draw on it because I'm
Hmm.
enjoying this so much. And that speaks volumes to cigar smokers, as opposed to the guy, the man or the woman who's at the big cigar lounge that's really a
Hmm.
sports bar, and grabs a cigar, and they're grabbing the biggest one that they can find to draw on it, and they're just going, oh, I just like smoking a cigar.
Hmm.
sure, yeah. And don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cigars that are sold in that environment. That's just not the
Hmm.
environment that we do well in.
Right.
So
Right.
that's not the consumer. I would which is why I think that you know again, I go back to we make cigars for people who smoke a lot of cigars that can
Hmm.
find that understand the value of
Hmm.
one, the price point, and then two, the quality. I think if you were to subjectively look at any cigar that's out there, you know taste is one thing. I mean, we could it's but when you say, okay, the cigar draws perfect, it's got it holds the ash. I don't have to relight it multiple times. It's got good
Hmm.
humidity. It
Hmm.
performs properly. Those are
Hmm.
those are things that you have to get right, because there's nothing
Hmm.
worse for most cigar smokers where they're constantly have to relight. Now,
Yeah.
Oh,
touching up is one thing. I think the OC,
Yeah.
people just like to touch up cigars, right? But
Right.
um, you know, however, people that will people who would enjoy products that we make are people who probably smoke multiple cigars throughout the day
Hmm.
or throughout the week, that would kind of really appreciate the
Hmm.
quality that because you could take any of the bands off and give it to anybody who doesn't smoke, and they'll go, man, I'm shocked at what that costs.
Hmm.
Like if you say, and that's how we do it. So, and again, like think about it. Like if I said, hey, do you like, if I said, X brand, we could kind of do it real quick. So if I said Davidoff, like what's the first thing that kind of pops into your mind, right? It's well constructed,
Hmm.
mild to medium,
Hmm.
good quality tobacco. you
Hmm.
know, it's a very specific. Like if you've had a Davidoff, you
Right.
know Davidoff, and it either hits
Right.
your palate or it doesn't, right? If I said La
Hmm.
Flor Dominicana, right, it's like you immediately go to DL 700 or Digger or full body,
yes.
full flavor kind of Dominican,
Hmm.
right? Um, and then so if I gave you a cigar and I said, here, try this with no band, which is how we started, and I said, smoke that, and you go, man, that's really good. And if I said, if it's X amount, yeah, it's really good. But if I said,
Hmm.
that's a $8 MSRP, you're like, holy shit, that's really good for, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
and you can do that
Oh
in
yeah,
whiskey,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
If I
yeah.
said,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when Eagle Rare is $32 on the shelf, $36 on the
Mm-hmm.
shelf, it's a great buy for a bourbon that's a 10-year bourbon for
Mm-hmm.
$32,
Mm-hmm.
$36. However, it's gotten to the point to where it's now $75 even at liquor stores.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, outside of Specs and Total Wines where they don't, but people are marking
Right.
up Eagle Rare. So it's like now that spirit has outpaced, like it was a great buy at this price point. But at
Mm-hmm.
this point, like it's still
It's
good.
really
But
not.
now I'm like,
Yeah, but it's not worth
yeah,
that. I'd rather have
right.
something else. And
So
if I'm going to spend that money, it's going to be towards something else. That's great.
correct,
I,
right? So
I,
so that's why
we,
I think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Are we done? We got to do the
we've
thing.
got a question for we've
Yeah.
got a question from Dave King. Which I want to get to that in a minute, but you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something, and I only want to touch on it just for a brief moment because it's something that we're trying to fight in the bourbon side and the whiskey side of things, and that's the secondary market. And the reason why I'm bringing up this up is because
Mm-hmm.
in one of the bourbon groups I'm in, somebody had posted a picture of Weller Foolproof selling at $999, and you mentioned Eagle Rare, and this is what brought this back to mind.
Mm-hmm.
In that same picture, the Eagle Rare was $299, and so that's that secondary market type prices. How do you see that we're getting to the point in the cigar industry to where we're starting to see secondary market prices on particular types of particular brands and particular expressions of vitolas when it comes to cigars?
I I have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I mean, I know I saw the website that was selling rare pinks for in the $90 price point for individual cigars, right? And apparently getting it all day long, right?
Yeah.
So I would assume that the Fuente family is kind of in that category with some of their cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
um, I don't, and again, I've had an Oro Blanco. I've been blessed to have two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I have like, is it good? Yes. Is it $500 good? Not really. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any
Yeah.
cigar should be that price
Right.
point. I mean, you're talking to a guy who puts out product. I mean, our most
Mm-hmm.
rare limited edition whatever retail at $15.
Mm-hmm.
MSRP $15, right? Taxes and everything else. That's that. Each state has its own kind of variation. Um, but the suggested retail price for the most expensive cigar that we ever made, like we did the collaboration Quinquagenario with Ernie Carrillo, it was $15, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, I don't think any cigar, as long as we're able to produce cigars in countries that allow us to have you know a difference in wages, meaning
Mm-hmm.
if we were to make cigars in the states, the cigars we're smoking right now would be $40-$50 just because of the wage you would have to pay to have it done here in the states,
right.
right? If that was the
Mm-hmm.
at the volume, at the 450 million cigars that are imported in the United States that are all made here, we've been making,
Mm-hmm.
the cost would go up. But the fact that you look at Dominican Republic, Honduras, Nicaragua, and
Mm-hmm.
some Costa Rica, there is some differentiated kind of pricing scales that go on, but you know um, that should be reflected in the price. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, just because. So a couple of things work backwards, right? I have heard people go, "Hey, try this cigar," and someone says, "Well, how much? Well, that cigar is only so much. How good can it be if it,
Mm-hmm.
because some people expect to pay $20-$25. Like they don't,
Mm-hmm.
it's in their mind that it should be, if it's under a threshold, it's got to be a junk,
Bad.
crappy
Yeah.
cigar,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is not
yeah.
true, which is
It
not true
isn't.
at all.
No.
Right. And the same thing is you can go down the list in bourbon, right? You could say, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, Evan Williams, the 101, you could go, early times bottle and bond, you could go, um, I mean, you can go down the list. There are
Mm-hmm.
really pretty good bottles of bourbon at that 25, 30. Now, are they exceptionally great? Not. I wouldn't call them like William LaRue Weller great, right?
Right,
But
Mm-hmm.
I would
right.
definitely say that they are, for 25, $30, they are above average and they're really
Right.
good. And then you get but then on top of that, then you get packaging, hype,
Mhm.
fanboyism, and so
Mhm.
I would say kind of get back to the original question. I'd say Tatuaje is probably in some of that talk as far as getting some of the secondary, limited
Mhm.
release,
Mhm.
such because
Right.
they've got, um, but in I have seen it in the past with RoMa. I don't see it as often as I used to, um, mainly because we try to uh, discourage a lot of that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, again, I would call it out. Like, if I saw somebody, I saw the box early on of Sabretooth, the one held up earlier, that went on eBay for $2,200.
Yep,
Um,
I've seen that as well.
yeah, well, what's up, Kay? So the
Mhm.
and so that blows me away. Like, I want to call that person up and go, dude, get your money back. Don't do that. That's stupid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, don't no cigar. Because what's going to happen is they're going to buy it, they're going to smoke it, and they go, man,
Mhm.
for $2,200, this cigar was, I don't see what the hype is.
I
And it's like, well, it
wasted
was
my
never
money.
meant to be yeah, it was
Yeah.
a $12 cigar, right? And
I
Mhm.
so, um,
I I've seen two lines of your cigars that have hit the secondary market type prices. And one was the Weasel Fest, where I walked into a store and they had some Weasel Fest cigars and they were going at about $25 each. And then the other line is your different Roma crafts, where I've seen some of the, like the 2019 2020 Roma crafts go at high dollar prices.
Mhm.
And would I pay that? Absolutely 100%. But that's because I know what I'm getting out of that.
Mhm.
sure.
I know that I'm getting, if I go and
High
spend,
quality.
$20 and $25 on a RomaCraft 2020, which I've smoked a number of the RomaCraft 2020s, and it's a
Mhm.
phenomenal cigar.
Mhm.
I wouldn't hesitate on that. But that being
Or the
said, I'm
narwhal.
yeah, or a
The
narwhal.
narwhal.
Oh yes, a narwhal. Oh my lord. Um, God, you're bringing back memories there now, Red.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, would I go out and spend $500 on a cigar? No, I wouldn't,
Well, I
because
don't think it's good for the culture.
I don't think it
And
No.
is
not to
either.
interrupt. So let me. So because we're talking about bourbon, there's a lot of crossover
Mhm.
parallel stuff. People people get into something, and then they get into this consumerism of collecting. And so like you go into some people's houses and they have a nice collection of bourbon or spirits or whatever, and they're all sealed.
Mhm.
And that's so what ends up happening is that means, for the Weller, let's say the guy went out and he paid $1,000 for the Weller foolproof, right? Again, that's a 65 $70, probably a $55 MSRP
Right.
bottle
Mhm. Yep.
that sells, at 15x over what it should be.
Right.
So that person now has so much money in that bottle, they don't even want to open it because it's like, now it's
And
like
enjoy it.
sacred. It's like it's
Yeah.
sacred because I have so much
It's
money
a holy
invested that
grail.
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah.
put it up on
Oh
the
yeah.
Mhm.
shelf just to show it off that I have it, right? So again, um, this mentality of collecting, but then not really enjoying, um, then it's a hobby, but you're not really in the hobby. Like, you're collecting, and so once you've collected all of the widgets and you have your shelf is full, maybe the only thing that you buy is like the super rare vintage something that
Mhm.
even goes on top of the other thing that you had on top, right?
Mhm.
But it's just there as a shrine. It's not there to enjoy and to,
Right.
so for me, like, you come here, every fucking bottle is open, maybe with the
Mhm.
exception of one or two. And I'm looking for a backup bottle. So once I get the backup bottle, then we'll crack the first one, especially if it's, or
I,
whatever.
I'm
But
I'm with you. I'm with you.
yeah,
Right.
so, but for the most part, that's the fun part of what we do.
Mhm.
When people come in here, it's like, oh man, I've never had that. Well, let's try it. Let's try it together.
Mhm.
Let's have this moment
Yes.
where we go through. And
Mhm.
that's the fun part
Yeah.
of what we do as a community, whether it's
Mhm.
in the cigar world or in the spirit
Right.
world.
Right.
Or
And that's
or
the
the wine
excitement
world
of it.
too.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
excitement, is to share with someone and let someone have that experience. For me, I enjoy it. It's like whenever I give cigars or whatever, I want them to partake in the experience I had because it's
Sure.
something that's unique and it's different, and it's I hope it's something they're going to remember. You know.
Yeah.
I would
I
say
know it.
that I would say that 95% of my bottles at home are open, and I paid MSRP for my full proof. Now, granted, I had to pay someone to get it for me, because they could find it, say, up in you know Detroit, Michigan, Wisconsin, somewhere up there, and ship it to me. So I paid the extra $20 for them to ship it to me. Um, but essentially, I still paid way under secondary prices, and it's open. I brought it up here to our bottom nights numerous times.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, on at our magazine launch party, I smoked my Purple Rain, my Opus X Purple Rain, which valued at 150, I think 150 plus dollars. Did I pay that much for it? No. It comes back to the culture, to to where you were talking about, someone
Hmm.
giving something to you, and you returning back the expression of
The,
what they did.
the in-kind gesture. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
gesture. Someone had given me that Purple Rain. I was saving it
Hmm.
for a special occasion, and that special
Hmm.
occasion was launching our magazine. Smoked
Hmm.
that, enjoyed it. Would I go out and spend that much for it? Probably not. But it's like something like what Chris says here. I'm willing to pay a higher price for, let's say, a 2020 craft
Those were so
that
good.
I'm
I had a pop.
that I'm out of, and someone has stored and cared for the past 4 years, but I'm not paying the
Hmm.
insane prices of 20 to 30%
Hmm.
over of it. And
Yeah.
I see our industry
That's
going
fair.
that way. I
Yeah.
think it's fair. Yeah.
I mean, again, what is the value of something? The value of something is what someone's willing to pay for you for it,
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
right?
it's a
So
perceived
what?
value.
Right.
Yeah. So your house, if you think your house is worth X and you put it on the market for X and it sits and it sits and it sits and it sits and it sits, you eventually either have to go, I got to lower my price, or
Hmm.
you put your price out there and you get multiple offers and you're like, I
Hmm.
clearly undervalued what I thought my house was worth,
Hmm.
right? So then all of a sudden the it goes up in value, meaning people start going above and beyond what your original
Hmm.
asking price was. So it's cigars are the same thing. So
Hmm.
you go into a liquor store and you see these bottles that are old dusty bottles, but they've got these insane prices on them.
Right.
There's one dum dum out of whatever that's willing probably will come
Hmm.
in that will pay the obnoxious 10x over asking price for some of this stuff.
Right.
And I get it. If you only get one bottle of Eagle Rare 17 or Wimaru Weller or even Pappy's,
Hmm.
right? I've got a very extensive bottle here selection here. There's not one bottle of Pappy's. I don't see Blanton's is just as good and readily
Hmm.
available. And I don't even like Blanton's. I'd rather have Blanton's, straight from the barrel or gold or something else. But
Hmm.
my point is that again, I am not willing to pay that. I've had it, just like you're saying. The Purple Rain was
Hmm.
great, but would you pay 125? Probably not. But if it's gifted to you, or a fraction of the cost, all day long, right?
Hmm.
Because there's like that's the level you're willing to go out of your range. So
Right.
realistically, it's the value you're willing to spend for that
Hmm.
product. So
So
um,
I do want to get to Dave's question, and I've got
Hmm.
to scroll back up to it because we've had a lot of really good comments. But this is something that we ask everybody on, and I wanted to point out to this is, uh, what can we expect? What are we going to see from Romacraft at PCA? What are we
Ew.
going to see from Romacraft at
I'm
I know
excited.
what you guys are bringing now to NFG, but what is coming up in the next year or 2 years from Romocraft? Anything that you can share?
yeah, so you kind of spoke about Cro-Magnon. So Cro-Magnon, as you currently know it, right now, is
Hmm.
is being reblended, repackaged, and a couple of things. I think that as the availability and quality for pricing for what we had was just too difficult to maintain for the model that we want to be at, right? And so just like Volstead, when we released Volstead, Volstead was a $7 to $10 price point MSRP that we released last year at the trade show. Cro-Magnon, so we took the opportunity to reblend a Pennsylvania broadleaf. So here's the thing: Cro-Magnon has been our number one. That's what we're known for. Cro-Magnon, like
Mhm.
RoMa Craft, for some reason, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, but Cro-Magnon is like in the that's kind of been our flagship.
Mhm.
And so, however, because the inability to maintain that at any real levels was really starting to diminish. Like we've always tried to put out about 300 to 350,000 Cro-Magnon a year. And so in 2018, whenever the whole uprising that happened in Nicaragua, retail sales had kind of fallen. We took advantage of that and were able to buy a lot of broadleaf. And then we actually exhausted that March, April of 2023. So all the Cro-Magnon that is available, that is out there, is the original Cro-Magnon. So if you come across it, you should grab some and squirrel it away
Mm,
because that's it.
mm,
So
mm. Okay,
yeah,
you've heard it here,
yeah,
first, folks. You've heard it
yeah.
here.
I've been stocking
So,
up since he told me.
yeah, yeah. So we're super excited. So we reblended Cro-Magnon, and I think a couple things have changed, right? Like my palate over the years has definitely uh, refined and developed.
Hmm.
I mean that was
Hmm.
made back in 2011, and it's still as good as it ever was from
Hmm.
2011 to until now. Um, so what do I know about the following that Cro-Magnon has? One, it's got to be a fucking kick-ass cigar.
Hmm.
Yep.
Like it has to live up to the name Cro-Magnon, right? So
Hmm.
um, the anyways, with that, there will be a Fomorian variant. There will be a Black
Hmm.
Irish variant, but it'll be called
Mm,
Clovis. So
mm.
Ooh.
instead of Black Irish, it'll be called the Clovis, four-leaf clover, kind of playing
Oh,
off the theme.
very cool. Yes.
Um, the we're going to release the blockhead in that. So basically, the original kind of staples that we had when we first launched Cro-Magnon, we'll launch with those. We're going to start off with our 5th anniversary cigar that we did called the Timeline, which is the 109 style kind of format. I think it's don't get me lying, it's like a 6.5 by 49 like Delicoso
Oh,
Ooh.
style. Um,
oh,
so
oh.
um,
Hmm.
so anyway, so we've got a nice uh, stockpile. We've been making it basically since I think week 43 of last year, and so
Hmm.
they're just now coming out. They're starting to go into packaging. So we're gonna drop that at the trade show. So the nice thing about it is like once we get to the trade show, people start putting their orders in, like it'll start hitting the shelves pretty quick. So super excited about that. Um, while I was at the factory, so the 2020 craft,
Yes.
um, I had them make up some samples. Skip's not really on board yet, but I'm thinking like once we get them out and we're smoking them, but it's this blended version, but with the
Oh,
decorative colors of like the 2020 craft, and
yeah.
so
Those were really
I'm
cool.
gonna. Those were phenomenal. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
Yeah,
great size.
those
Like
were.
I had two. I
um,
had two boxes of those.
yeah. So that's
I
and
had
it's
two
wild.
cigars.
The and it's wild to me. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You go into some stores and you're like, man, that stuff came and gone. It's gone. I had a certain
Hmm.
amount of boxes and I sold them all out. I'll go into some stores and they'll still have like, I need to start posting it more on social media because I've run into some shops that have narwhal. I've run into some shops that have,
Whoa.
some craft boxes just kind of laying around. It's
Hmm.
like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Why are they still
if you were
there?
just,
Like shit.
yeah, if you had any
Do you
kind
know
of
what you
like,
have? Do you know what you have?
yeah, there's a
That
lot
that
of that.
just tells
There's
me
a,
that the tobacconists there are not smoking what they have. Because
Hmm.
if they don't, I mean,
well,
if they still have those, they don't know what they got.
well, it's funny, man. I think before COVID, a lot of these shops had really, really like Gabe was in the industry. I want to say was it 2017, 2018, and
Hmm.
you know cigar enthusiasts, right? And then we kind of got up to COVID. And then in 2020, a lot of guys were furloughed and then they went out and got different jobs outside of the industry. Some
Mhm.
shops retained some people, but for the most part,
Mhm.
the guys at Underground have done a really good job. Brandon over at Michaels has done a really good job. Brandon over at Renegade has done a really good job
Yep.
retaining some
Yeah.
people. But then there's a lot
Yep.
of guys that just have this revolving door of people,
Sure. Mhm.
and when their revolving staff is coming in, anything that was before that they got there, they get so over their head, right? Like
Mhm.
they're just there to ring the register and to clean up ashtrays,
Exactly.
and they're
Right.
not
True
enthusiasts. You know what I
tobacconist.
mean? And
Right.
so you think about that nationwide,
Mhm.
especially in some areas where cigars may not be as popular as they are kind of in Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania,
Right.
Arizona, right? Like you go into some shops and you're like, Kansas City has some really good shops, but you'll
Mhm.
go into some of these stores and you're just like okay, it's almost depressing. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
because it is really seasonal.
Mhm.
Um, there's a shop called Smoke on the Water in Florida that has some cigars that we made, like vanities, like little 37-inch ring gauges, AWS. Like there's a honey hole of cigar stuff, and it's a great cigar bar. It's a fantastic, but the kind of the crappy thing about it is one, the new staff that they have, they're not fully bought into Roma, or they're
Mhm.
like, why would I sell your $8-10 cigars when I can sell $40-50 cigars all day long because I'm in Western Florida, and the
Mhm.
people coming in here can afford this.
Right.
So
The
why
higher
would I
end.
sell them
Right.
your $10 cigar when I can sell them $40 cigars all day long? I'm making 3x the amount of money. If they're going to come in and smoke one cigar, I want them to buy one of those and then drink a whole bunch of stuff at the bar. And so I go in there and I'm just like shocked at like the availability of some of the cool stuff that they have. And then some of the really really cool and exotic stuff is so overpriced that you're like, dude, you'll never sell it at that price point. I mean, you might, but it's like what are we doing? But I love Daniel and those guys. They have a great uh, it's an awesome store, and
Mhm.
they're glad. But I look at some of the goodies they have, and I'm just kind of blown away sometimes.
We have
But
those shops here in the
Mhm.
yeah,
DFW area as well. We've got some shops that they only carry the cigars that their clientele will buy.
good show.
Obviously, in various
Nice yoga.
very particular types of profiles
Mhm.
that their clientele looks
Right.
for, and so they only bring in cigars that meets that profile.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we're talking 25, 35, 45, 50.
Mhm.
I've even seen some $100+ cigars in this particular lounge. So yeah, we've got that here as well. Now,
Right.
I would love to go and, if we had a store here that had a box of the Roma Craft 2020s, sitting around, that the tobacconists happened to not know what it was that they had,
Mhm.
and find it and go and snatch those up myself, because
Yeah.
I sure would.
That's I don't know. I don't know if you'll find any shops like that. I mean, not that we would sell to. I mean, there may be, but if I come across some, I'll definitely let you know. I got to do a better job. Um, and what's funny is like I'll go into a shop and be like, "Are you going to sell those?" And they're like, "No." And every once in a while, I will post it and be like, "Hey, this shop has such," and all of a sudden their phone will fucking blow up for the next 25
Mhm.
minutes, 30 minutes. As people just calling and just saying, you know. I ran into a shop. I was in New Jersey and they had a femur. Um, it was it's a liquor store. It wasn't Berkeley Wine. It was his brother's store. Oh, I forgot what it's called. Anyways, I walk in and no BS. So the femur was a cigar. We only made about 150 of them, but it's a 133 by 10 in a coffin, and they had a sealed box. And I was like, "Are you like you still have this?" And they're like, anyway. So I posted it, and a guy from Connecticut like literally called the store and was like, I'm driving down to come buy this, and I'm so it's just wild to me. It's like they're a consumer, and that's kind of the thing that I always tell, like we do a really good job of trying to do a lot of things, and I get it. When you're a retail
Mhm.
store, you've got all these other brands that you're trying to sell,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you got to spin all the plates, right? So you can't be
Mm-hmm.
focused on any one thing. But the retailer is a conduit to my consumer. Like, and when I get you hooked into my products, there are people who are looking for that. You just have to let people know that you're a source, or you know, you have
Yep.
you guys are sitting in a really
Mm-hmm.
cool lounge that has all that, right? So you don't have
Right.
that problem. But there are people
That do.
around that are watching that are not connected to their tobacconist, because the tobacconist is not letting them know that
What's new
and what's
or
yeah
what's out?
and
What they have available.
yeah. So we have this shop, and I'll real quick, because I know I'm really chatty, but we have a store in New York, called, I won't even call them out, but let me put it this way: in the past, pre-COVID, when I would go there, there would be 75, 80 guys that were hardcore Roma craft cigar nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. The big thing has changed. The tobacco taxes in New York have changed. It's 72%. Um, whatever. But this shop does very, very well. They're probably doing about $3 million in sales annually. It's a monster store. And anyways, the last two events I've done, instead of having pictures of like all these people that I know, I go in and there's maybe two or three people that I might know. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
there's been a changeover. So they're
Mm-hmm.
still doing the volume of sales that they were doing. But the reality of it is, it's kind of more of the social party scene. It's not the hardcore traditional cigar smokers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to go into his store right now, they'll have Black Iris on the shelf. They'll have Fomorian on the shelf. They'll have Baca on the
Oh,
shelf. They'll have Sabretooth on the shelf. They'll have like
Shit.
this incredible, like, to the point to where I
Mm-hmm.
have stopped allocating them products. I mean, they're a great supporter of our brand. They have everything that we make, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not turning it over at the rate, because if I sent that to Don Shop or anybody else's store, that shit would be gone in seconds. Like the
It'd be
piranhas
gone.
would
right.
come out and
Yeah.
just,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
If we gobble it
So
up.
yeah, so
That's why they
Mom
call us the
Cigars in
piranhas.
Scarsdale, New York, is if you're looking for a honey hole. But the problem is they have this obnoxious tobacco tax. And
Mm-hmm.
again, so my point to the owner of the shop is like, hey man, like, your shop is doing very, very well. Clearly, like, it's doing extremely well, but you've lost touch with the meat and potato kind of smoker. And what are
Yeah.
you going to do when the casual people that are, they're not really into the hobby, kind of go away, and
Mm-hmm.
the music kind of stops, and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden that and they kind of go off to clubs and whatever, because that's kind of what you turned
Mm-hmm.
into. And like how do you get those people back into your shop? Like, you've got to, and I love the store. I love everything that they do. I think we have a great relationship, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if that business is sustainable long term. And I hope
Mm-hmm.
that, I hope they do well, whatever. But again, COVID has really changed. People are smoking at home. They're having cigars bought
Mm-hmm.
online, and they're shipping them to their homes, because, they can, they've converted their garage or a room to smoke in.
Uh huh.
Um,
Yep.
and so it's really, really changed, and so then you have to look at it and go, if I don't have the hardcore cigar nerds coming through the door to buy product, then I need product that just turns really, really fast, that are the
Mm-hmm.
staples of like the mass volume types of products. And that diminishes the things that we do, because they're selling such high volumes of this other derivative kind of products, right? So it's it's definitely something that is, from a long term perspective, it's concerning,
Mm-hmm.
because you're seeing a change in culture, as
Mm-hmm.
far as, um, but at the same time, like, it's not just affecting us; it's affecting a lot of other people, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think the other thing that's kind of happened in the last 5 or 6 years, right, is, again, HVC, Black Label, um, Saka Foundation, um, uh, Aladino, right? Like, you've had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, Noel Rojas. Like, you've had a lot of people kind of pop up and really kind of cut into the pie.
Yeah.
Like, so the pie's only this whole big, right? And it's like, mass market takes a big chunk of that, and then you have kind of this other half pie of
Mhm.
like people who are like us
Yeah.
in
Right.
similar kind of
Mm-hmm.
products. you know. Uh, but then that pie gets really sliced up really thin because everyone's kind of competing for that same customer.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that from which is great because I mean those other brands keep us on our toes to make sure that
Right.
we're still on our game to to making sure that people keep coming back to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also within that section there's this what's new mentality, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying what's always available and really good, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's new, right?
Right.
And you can't just keep throwing stuff out there because again, retailer fatigue or consumer fatigue really happens when people are just like, dude, I'm tired of chasing the bullshit. I'm tired of
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
looking
Yeah.
for the so anyways, long
Yeah.
tangent.
It's those.
I'm chatty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's those. Well, it's those comfort sticks. That's what I refer to as comfort sticks. The
Sure.
ones that are always there. They're gonna like I'm gonna go to the store like to underground and be able to come pick up intemperance. You know, it's a comfort stick. It goes. It's phenomenal with espresso. In the morning. Those are my morning espresso sticks. And that's a comfort to me, especially during the summer when I have my time off. I get to kind of sleep in and wake up slowly, go make my espresso, and then I know what stick I'm going to have with it. It's an intemperance, because it's just something that I've always done. It's always been there. So it provides that level of comfort, but
Yeah.
I think that you have to be like, someone who's been smoking for a while. I'm not just a fad. I've
Sure.
been doing this for 26, 27 years,
Right.
I agree. I think we've got a couple of really key points on here. Is you've got a couple of different styles of types of smokes. You got the comfort sticks, like what you just described, Brett, and then you've got the ones that could fit into those chaser sticks, those limited
hmm
editions. The TAA exclusive, the limited
hmm
editions, the chasers.
hmm
And I personally I enjoy going after the chasers because I know that I can always find my comfort sticks.
hmm
I can come to the underground. I can go to to any shop. A lot of different shops and buy my everyday smokes. In my rotations, and talking about smoking a lot of cigars. I'll smoke 50 to 60 cigars probably in a week. So I need that type of comfort stick, that
hmm
every single day smoke on that. But there's also times where I want to try, I want to smoke something that's outside of
hmm
them. That's that chaser type of cigar. And I do look for those, and I'll go into. I was in Arkansas and went into West End and found a TA exclusive. And they had so many others, and I bought the TA exclusive and a couple of others to smoke while I was there. Spending a week in Arkansas. Caring for my dad who wasn't doing well at the time. You
And I
you
didn't mean
have
that towards your dad. Sorry.
no, 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 no. I know. You have both of those
hmm
that the people that fit into the cigar smoker category that we hit on, where we smoke every day and we smoke multiple cigars every day, you got to have that that variety.
hmm
Because I'm not going to smoke the same thing every single day.
Well, I think that there's like so for me, whenever I shop for cigars, I think that you have your comfort cigars, like your
hmm
staples, and I think those are ones that um you know exactly what you're going to do
hmm
when you're going to enjoy
When
that
you smoke
cigar.
that, yeah.
Yeah, when you know exactly what it's for, when and what time and
hmm
where you'll
Hmm.
be. Like it just is an automatic. And then so people, I typically try to get like to the 20 or whatever the box kind of deal is, and so I get two of this, two of that, whatever. And then it's I try to go for five or six kind of new that are out there that I haven't tried that I've kind of been looking at, and then when I smoke them, if they don't become part of my next time I'm at the shop in that environment, if they didn't
hmm
make the cut, that's how I know if that cigar is good or not. Like if it doesn't, if I don't go back and buy it again,
Hmm.
then it just doesn't make the cut. Like it was good for that 45 minute an hour kind of thing, and then
Right. Hmm.
it just kind of But if I'm like, you know what, let me get another one of those. The
Yep.
Aladino Corojo Reserva is a great cigar. It's a fantastic cigar. The one with the paper on it, I love that
Yep.
cigar. I think
Hmm.
it's definitely I keep a box here. I kind of go through them. It's something that I enjoy. It's I think that there's again, so that cigar pleasantly surprised me. It exceeded my expectations, so it made it into my rotation. Right. I like Padrones. Um, every once in a while, I'm the Hermoso is a nice kind of short, fatty kind of cigar that I box press that I really enjoy. Kind of like the first one you're
Hmm.
smoking, the Mastodon. Um, so it's something that I you know it's part of my rotation, as far as
Hmm.
something that I will seek out. Um, and then I try to find a couple other ones that hopefully will kind of go into that rotation on the next time that I'm buying cigars. And so
Hmm.
I think that's where, the difference is, the people that are, buying based off social media buzz or the influencers or the whatever. It's like, that's, if it draws people into it, I think it's great. But I
Hmm.
think there also has to be a tobacconist or somebody that says, okay, now that you kind of got your toe into the culture, let
Yep.
me let
Here,
me
try
take you
this
over
one.
here, and then
Yeah.
yeah, let me help you
Hmm.
out
Yes.
a little bit. Let me help
Yeah.
you out.
Yes.
You
Let
know,
me
Yes.
expand your palette besides what
yeah,
you have. Let me broaden your horizon.
yeah,
As what we like to state here in Leaf and Grain Society, let me help you explore the pairings. I've got
Hmm.
my this one right here. What I call my refill buys when I'm going to refill my humidors, because my humidors have come down some. The Whiskey Rebellion is one that's part of my refill buys. You mentioned Foundation Tabernacle.
Hmm.
It's if I was limited to one or two cigars that I could only ever smoke this for the rest of my life, Rebellion would be right up in there. You mentioned Noel Rojas, the Blue Bonnet. Love the Blue Bonnet.
Hmm.
The Foundation Tabernacle. These are going to be my everyday go-tos
yeah,
as I'm going to a shop to look for to do my refill buys. I'm also looking for something that I've never tried before. Something that I've never smoked, that I've never seen. And Red and I think it was I think it was around June or July last year. We tried to calculate how many cigars she and I smoked in a year. We've hit the 2,000 mark easily in a year. Finding that cigar that we've never seen, that we've never smoked, that we've never tried is getting harder and harder to do. And so that's where some of those chasers, those TA exclusives, those
Hmm.
limited editions come into play on that will go in on that. With that all that having been said, we're at the 2 hour and 12 mark. Um, I am going to ask you to stick around just for a little bit after we close this off, but let's talk about a little bit what we've got coming up. We've got some other great guests. We've had
Hmm.
Michael Rosales on with us for the past 2.25 hours, and so appreciate you, Mike.
Hmm.
Joining us with us. I've been a fan of Romacraft for a number of years. Just love your guys' cigars, and I've got a funny story to tell you after we get off the after we end this. What do we got coming up next? Next week we got a pairing. What are we going to do next week?
Are we doing the iced tea?
Yes, we
Right?
are.
We're
We're
doing
doing the
iced tea. Iced tea.
iced tea, and then following
Hmm.
that, we have Christoph.
Hmm.
I believe it's the following week we have Christoph that's
Hmm.
going to be on the show
Hmm.
with us. So we've got some great things. If you guys don't know, I mean, we've talked about NFG. We are going to be at NFG. We've already shown the beer can glass that we've got. But we've also got the second edition of our magazine that we are in the process now of putting together the
Hmm.
layout, bringing articles in. for the second issue of our magazine. And the theme of the magazine is this issue of the magazine is going to be all walks: cigars, whiskeys, wines, coffees, and teas, what have you. It's for all walks of life. It's not for one particular. There's offerings at every single budget level. So this what we're doing is for all walks of life. That's going to be the theme of our next issue. Um, any other closing thoughts, Red?
No, I've really enjoyed Michael coming on and telling us and going into details because I think sometimes as a consumer we don't know really what all goes into making the
Right,
cigars, like the
right.
pallets and why you're changing out this leaf versus that leaf. It was a great for him to share that with the audience because I think sometimes they just don't know or they haven't expanded into it. So thank you so much for coming on and going into details for that because I think that's an important part for the consumer to understand.
Absolutely.
Well, we always we're super transparent with everything that we do, and I think that's
That's
you
all
know
a part too.
we're having this conversation, and this kind of talks about you know real quick. So I know we're trying to wrap this up, but in the wine industry, I used to do this event called Crush and Roll. So back in the day, there was a guy named Doc Diaz who had the first podcast that I know of cigars that was around for a long, long time. And so it's called, so he did an event called Crush and Roll. And so crush grapes
Hmm.
and cigars, right? Crush and roll. That was
Hmm.
great. So first multi-vendor, this is back in 2006 when I just started kind of getting into the cigar industry as like exploring this as a thing. And so anyway, I'm not a wine guy. I mean, I like to drink wine,
Hmm.
um, but I'm I, the GERD and acid reflux is not a friend of mine, so I try to stay away from it. Right. Um, so but while I was there, and this is Sonoma was already kind of a thing, Napa Valley was still a thing, but the Paso Robles is a really good wine, but they're known
Hmm.
for more of their sweeter wines, like what they would make in Portugal. So more port style kind of wines, right?
Oh,
More
love those.
dessert style
Hmm.
kind of wines. What they're
Hmm.
so, anyways, but the law at the time, and I think it's still the same, is well, so they would come down and they would buy a lot of grapes from Paso Robles and then take it back to Napa and Sonoma and then make
Hmm.
a blended wine. But as long as it had a certain percentage of local wines, it could be
Hmm.
Hmm.
called Noma or Napa, Sonoma or Napa wine.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So the ratings are going crazy, and poor old Paso Robles is not getting any kind of love, even though 50% of the grapes that were in this bottle are not getting any
Hmm.
no shine. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what that means is that their wines are kind of stagnant at the same price point, and they're
Hmm.
not going up in value because no one's really going out. Like no one knows what Paso Robles wine is really all about. So how does that relate to cigars? You're starting to see a lot more of this hybrids. So, for example, the
Hmm.
Volstead is Ecuadorian Sumatra hybrid. So technically, the same seed is what's used for the Cameroon varietal, so an Asian
Hmm.
style kind of seed, but grown in Ecuador. So it's a
Hmm.
hybrid. So we don't. So we just say it's a hybrid, but it's a Sumatra. It's called that's what it's called, Sumatra hybrid. But on the
Hmm.
pack of tobacco that you buy, it actually says Cameroon. So Sumatra Cameroon or whatever grade, whatever. So as an industry, how do we self-regulate? So I'll go to the Dominican Republic. This is last year. This is back when we kind of knew, like, hey, we've got to figure out this broadleaf. So we go to the Dominican, and we're looking at Nicaragua, and everyone's showing us, and they're like, oh no, this is broadleaf. Multiple people. If I said their names, you'd be like, no way. And I'd be like, fucking yes way. So
Hmm.
here's what I'll say. If I called Apple Computer and I said, hey, I need 1,000 phones. I want the new 15 Pro Max, whatever, or I need the laptops, and I want this much RAM and this much memory and this much whatever. I'm going to get a pallet, perfectly sized, labeled, dimensions. like everything to my specifications is going to be shipped to me, and it's gonna be exactly what I asked for the same amount, the price we agreed upon. So this is what's happened. So people ask us like, hey, have we expanded? Roma Craft is still at 1 million cigars, 1.25. 250,000 cigars go to Europe and to Germany, and they kind of divvy those out across the 17 countries we're in Europe. And then, but about 1 million cigars since 2016, we've made the same amount of cigars, which is a very small amount. We make about 5,000 cigars a week. Drew Estate's doing about 165, 170,000 cigars a day, just to put that in perspective. Before COVID, and since when we started up, we had this ability to be able to go to people and say, hey, we'll buy this tobacco, but we need you to work it. And then, because we have a small factory, and then we'll bring it over as we need it. And they had the space, and we were buying a decent amount, and they wanted to see us do well. We pay our bills on time. So everything was great. Post-COVID, the demand goes up, and people are just coming in going, hey, you got tobacco? I need it. So 2018, there's a revolution in Nicaragua. 2018, into 2018, 2019, all the bigger companies buy as much as they think they can because they think Nicaragua's going to get shut down because of the revolution. 2020 rolls around, so a PCA comes around, cigar sales are down because they already bought all the old shit. They're only going to buy the new stuff. So the cigar sales and turnout for the 2019 PCA was really, really low. Going into 2020, people didn't bring back as many people because their production levels were down, demand was kind of down, and so it was like nobody really wanted to kind of crank up the factories at the beginning of the year. COVID happens in March. All of a sudden, people are sitting around. They got fucking time on their hands. Internet sales explode through the roof, right? So what happens? All of a sudden, you got to crank up the machine. So you're begging people to come back into work. I don't want to go to work, COVID. Well, what if I pay you X? Okay, I'll come to work. Okay, right? So people are paying to get people back into the chairs and to get the things working up. So there's only so much tobacco, and people are ordering POs to send them. Send me. I just need cigars. Send them as fast as you can because internet sales are going through the roof. And I think, and I won't say their names, but two of the companies do what they do in cigar sales between Black Friday through Christmas. They were doing that every day in April and May. Like the numbers that they do in that window, they were doing that daily in cigar sales.
Wow.
Right. So the volume of sales that were being automated and generated were 10x the regular numbers, right? So anyways, because all the local retail shops were shut down trying to figure out curbside, whatever. Long story short, all the tobacco that's now coming into these bigger distributors that would work this tobacco for us would say, hey, I don't have the room nor the manpower or the space to kind of babysit your little shit over here. So I need you to figure that out because I've got container loads of tobacco coming in that are moving in and out, and I don't want your stuff to get mixed up in this other stuff.
Exactly.
So we had to make a decision. So Skip and I basically took $2 million, built out the bodegas, which is, if you follow him on social media, you may see these bigger rooms with all this tobacco. So we invested and were able to buy what we could buy. So how does that pertain to my Paso Robles story? So during this process, we're out buying all the tobacco we can get our hands on, right? And the sense was, it's like, okay, Mexican San Andres, check, Neanderthal. Whiskey Rebellion Habano, check. Aquatine wrapper, check. Like I've got all the wrapper leaf that I need. So the thought process was, is we could go and buy wrapper leaf, high quality wrapper leaf. If there's a shortage of Este Lajero or Ometepe or Pueblo Nuevo or whatever, high grade good tobacco is almost like 2-to-1 in trade value. So if you have Este Lajero and it's good Este Lajero, but I've got high quality wrapper leaf, I made the investment to buy it. No one else has it, and I'll break you off 100 pounds, but I want 200 pounds of your Este Lajero. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
From an economics perspective, again, we're businessmen, right? So
Yep.
So in that conversation piece, though, people are like, I need broadleaf. Let me show you broadleaf. Okay, so you open it up, you do you burn it, you smell it, you look at the elasticity, you're looking at it, and you're going, man. It looks like broadleaf. Um, it doesn't stretch like broadleaf, or it doesn't burn like broadleaf. So three of the things that you're looking for: the elasticity, the burn,
Hmm.
the aroma, and texture. Right? It's got one of the components, or two of the components, but not the third. And so eventually, after kind of going back and forth, going, dude, I've been buying broadleaf for a long, long time. This is not broadleaf. Oh, it's not. Are you sure this is, um, Connecticut shade, or Connecticut River Valley broadleaf? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you come in and you realize, like, that's not. It's like, dude, I know for a fact that this is not what that is. Okay, well, that's a
Hmm.
hybrid. That's a locally regioned, um, Dominican hybrid, or a Nicaraguan hybrid, or, you know, long story short, it's a buyer beware kind of mentality. And if you
Right.
don't
Hmm.
know, you don't know. And they hope that
Right.
you don't know, and they're going to sell you this off.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or you can make a decision to say, I knew that this is not quite the same, but would the consumers know? And that goes back to, we could have easily slapped on this other hybrid kind of stuff and said, you
Hmm.
know what, maybe a fraction of people kind of know. But at the end of the day, I would know, Skip would know, we would know that,
Hmm.
like, it's not the same. And
Hmm.
so there's this conversation piece that has to happen, that as long as people are making these types of hybrids out there, but they're not telling people
Hmm.
that it's a hybrid wrapper. Is it a Cameroon, or is it a hybrid? Is it Sumatra really? And you're calling it, Cameroon, or is it a broadleaf,
Hmm.
but it's Dominican grown, but it's whatever. Like, so there's, how do we self-regulate that, and where do we draw the lines
Hmm.
into, like, where do we call what's what? You know what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
that's my last conversation piece. I know we're kind of going on 2.5.
All good.
But
All good.
anyway, so it's like, you see this in other industries, and you kind of see how they kind of manage and handle that other stuff, and you're starting to see a lot of that stuff kind of bleeding over into ours, right?
Hmm.
So, just some food for thought. So,
All good information.
Hmm.
A completely different insight into the business aspects of
Hmm.
what we haven't seen, and in some of the other guests that we've had on the show. And so thankful for you and appreciate you being on the
Hmm.
show and having that transparency, because that really helps us as the true consumers
Hmm.
this this culture of what we're trying to promote, of what we try to do within Leap and Grain Society with the education and
Hmm.
helping people know what it is and why it is that they enjoy what they do. So thankful
Hmm.
for your time coming on with us. Um, we've already talked about what's coming up, so the only
Hmm.
other thing that's left to say is thank you everybody for joining with us on us. Come back next week. Please go out to our website, read those articles. We've got 140 plus different articles on the website. Hit like and subscribe on these videos on our YouTube channel. Help us grow this. And until next week, explore the pairings.
There's something for everyone. Good night, y'all.
Good night.